The key message from our finding is that we found that recipients of the Pfizer vaccine, those who've had 2 doses, have about 5 to 6-fold lower amounts of neutralizing antibodies. Now, these are the sort of gold standard private security antibodies of your immune system, which block the virus from getting into your cells in the first place. And so we found that that's less for people with 2 doses. We've also found that for people with only 1 dose of the Pfizer jab, that they are less likely to have high levels of these antibodies in their blood.
The Red Cross says anyone who has received their COVID-19 vaccine cannot donate convalescent plasma to help other COVID-19 patients in hospitals. That plasma is made up of antibodies from people who have recovered from the virus, but the vaccine wipes out those antibodies, making the convalescent plasma ineffective in treating other COVID-19 patients.
Yeah, more people have died under COVID this year, by the way, under Joe Biden, than under you. And more people took the vaccine this year. So people are questioning how.
Well, no, the vaccine worked, but some people aren't taking it. The ones that get very sick and go to the hospital are the ones that don't take the vaccine. But it's still their choice. And if you take the vaccine, you're protected. Look, the results of the vaccine are very good. And if you do get it, it's a very minor form. People aren't dying when they take the vaccine.
It starts with a simple question and ends in objective reality. Through our journey from there to here, we find one another and ourselves. And as the next 24 hours breaks free from our last, we gaze onward in reflection of the day.
Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up.
Saturday, June 13th, 2026. Thank you for joining me today. And someone's pointing out in the chat, it's been quite a long time since we've started with those clips. In fact, probably even played those clips. I put the 3 together out of just a endless reservoir of information and databases and servers and tabs collected about all the stuff we went over through COVID-19 and every other topic that we end up going through, which on one point is why it's so frustrating sometimes to lose some of this stuff, because, you know, if you don't have it on a server in front of you, you have it on a, you know, YouTube type platform, you can lose it all. But it's interesting that that stuff has been so, it's become so distant from the conversation. It was such an earth-shattering, I mean, to this very day, it still is affecting the way we live our lives. And the people that pushed back on that more than anyone, rather the team, not the people, I should say, the team political side of it that did, doesn't seem to care right now. Seeing as how we're going to talk about one point today, that underneath everything that's happening, I saw this from Jeffrey Tucker online, Donald Trump's administration is rolling out and giving, I think it was over $1 billion combined to Pfizer for a new infant and adult COVID-19 shot. Shouldn't surprise anybody if they've even remotely been paying attention or watching this platform or anybody honest in this field, because it's not changed. Narrative has changed. We'll talk about that and quite a lot today, in fact, so I want to try to keep this short to start. I want to point out a few main things today. We're going to get caught up on the Iran conversation. If you'd watched my last show, you right now already know what's going on, how insane that is. 2 days ago, there's new points to add, but unless today, the anomaly happens and all the things, well, I don't even want to get into it to start. There's new narratives being put out today about how the deal is supposed to be signed tomorrow, despite Iran already saying it's not actually happening. We'll go through it. It's almost maybe designed so it just blends together for people who aren't acutely paying attention, because it's like, isn't that what he said 2 days ago? Isn't that what Ryan said a week ago? Yes, but they're different points. There are different points in the same absurd, I don't know, series of lies or being lied to, that what Trump is going through, but we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about an argument of Trump, at least stating, and you could argue he's trolling people. That's always possible, but it doesn't change the, I guess, seriousness of what he's saying, of threatening to take over Washington, D.C. should somebody he doesn't like win. And that's literally what he says. We'll point to it today. We're going to talk about Israeli manipulation in elections and how obvious this has been, and a new example of a long proven reality that never seems to get acknowledged by the political field or the journalist class, what do you want to call it? Black Core, not interestingly similar to Black Cube and Black Rock and all these different obviously Israeli connected entities. Black Core is another one that has been used to manipulate elections, used to create AI propaganda campaigns. We'll get into how important it is. That even connects back to Massey, as far as I can tell. We're going to talk about the new COVID shots, as well as another dog injection. That you guys know, my animals have they're family to me. And not everyone feels the same. I understand that. But the lack of concern, even knowing that people, like the fact that I think most people do care about, just empathy in general for animals, but that you could have an industry where they can create something that is so obviously created with the interest of, I guess, convenience in mind, not the health of the actual animal that it's supposed to be maintaining. And it's horrifying. That's another shot we'll talk about. We'll talk about a quick point around health and PFAS that's continuing in the same direction as all the other things this administration is doing. Biolabs and Tulsi Gabbard, and of course, the Iran conversation. A lot to talk about, a lot to get into today. Try to make this as, almost every one of these topics, by the way, we've gone into in depth many times over the years. So as most of them today, you'll see we're going to be going into the new points of this, but not to try to rehash all the same stuff that we've talked about many times before. Almost in a way to say this is where we were before, and here's the additional part, which in a way verifies what we were saying then. That's just, it's a Tuesday for TLAV, it seems, or, another day in the usual. But let's get to an opening part that I wanted you to see from Taylor Hudak. Now, this is actually an older article that we put out a while back, written by Amanda Froelich. It was when we were reposting, I believe this was from, it's right here, actually. Oh, maybe not. Maybe we worked. I forget now. But either way, the point was there was back at this point, there's a lot of different things, different writers, different places we were reposting from. But the title, Hungary becomes first European nation to ban Rothschild's banks. Now, a lot has happened around since then. And generally speaking, though, this is, the point is simply putting in your mind the change that was happening then. Not to try to rehash all the things in between all this time, but you saw at least ostensibly some kind of pressure against the globalist banking apparatus in this country. Jump forward a little bit. This is from Tyler Durden at the time, 2017. U.S. State Department admits plans to meddle in Hungary's democracy. Now, again, you could even dispute whether it was even a democracy at that point, or whether the point is that it's pretty obvious to see the meddling, the election manipulation, the regime change tactics that these governments do every day of their existence. So you saw a different shift, and there's been and rightly so, a conversation about, let's say, central banks and influence therein, and whether or not that plays a factor on the things that happen in these countries. It's not a secret. And so interestingly, you see that changed, and then you see some pressure coming from the U.S. government so many years later. And just I want you to make sure you read this article that Taylor put out that is outstanding. Very well done, very well researched, entitled "The Pro-War Network Behind Hungary's New Foreign Minister. Anita Obron's deep U.S. ties," not, as far as I can tell, and as she argues, no connection to Victor, the previous leader. What's interesting as you go through this is it's not even a secret. There's nothing hidden here. As far as I can tell, this person is directly connected to the U.S. pro-war apparatus, and it's not new, guys. And the connections to DARPA, CFR, and many different things that I hope you will take the time to read. It's a long article, and it's worth your time. But I just want to throw it out there in the beginning. And as Taylor kind of jokingly said to me as we were talking about this, she's like, I know that Americans and a lot of people in the world don't seem to be too interested in Hungary politics, but it matters when you understand how deep these ties are and the rest of what we're seeing in the world. So maybe you don't think I find any of these to be equally important, but if you're less interested in specifically politics in this country, consider how this is a small part of all of what we're seeing take place. At the very least, that it could be. I believe it is. As always, Taylor doing outstanding work. So make sure you check this out for yourself. We put it on our Substack as well. Now, I want to start with a couple quick points here that relate to, I guess, to the two-party illusion conversation. In this case, it's an AI point, and there's a lot to get into around the AI point that seems to, at least in the moment right now, to be taking a back seat because there's so much happening in day-to-day stuff. And I guess really for me, sometimes I grapple with these larger points I want to make about things I've been collecting information on, because I know it's going to be a long, deep conversation. And then I look at what's going on today and I'm like, well, there's 17 topics that we have to cover today. And so day to day, these things get put off until I have a day where we can focus on them. In a way, it's kind of a backward reality because I find the AI data center conversation to be paramount. I mean, almost the most important thing happening in the world, if you understand where it all seems to go, in my opinion. That's not to say, we will cover it. We've covered it extensively many times, but I'm only just kind of saying this out loud as I'm thinking about it, that it's frustrating that that's the thing taking the backseat. I digress. This is an important point to see. And this relates to, I guess, the many different ways this administration is continuing to just fail you and lie to you and do the opposite of what it promised. No different than Biden or any of the ones you can see before. I just think they're worse at hiding this and just more incompetent than ever. On a quick side note, I was watching Cristian talk about I think now she's being put, what was it, the Golden Shield thing she's involved in now, aimed at South America. And she's on a show and they ask her about South America and she talks about 2 countries that aren't in South America. I just go, this has got to be the dumbest administration in U.S. history. And that's saying something. And it's not about partisanship. Back to the point. White House. The White House's AI deal. Kill state laws, demand your ID. Reclaim the net. Put out this article. And we've talked about actually this very overlap. And right from the beginning of the administration, we talked about how they were going to stop state rights in regard to AI. And it's a huge deal. Anyone that cares about the Constitution and constitutional rights should take your pick of the endless amount of times they're showing you they don't care about the Constitution, or that we should break it insofar as we accomplish our goals. Then that still means you don't care about the Constitution because it shall not be infringed. Inalienable. The point, though, is that the states' rights around AI is important because these states get to decide how they regulate this monumentally earth-shattering change. But that's obviously not what the power wants. They want to dictate how it affects your life because they want control. That's very easy to understand. That's not even hyperbolic. That's exactly what's happening. But the point is that now they're taking it away. And they tried to pass legislation twice, as far as I can remember, to try to stop that. Now it got pushed back on. Didn't matter, though. As I told you, Lutnick said this publicly in front of an entire crowd. It won't matter. We're not going to allow them to regulate the way this AI goes. And here we are. Whether Trump yells something out loud, writes something down on paper, executive order, they're going to do what they want. I think everyone can see that from this administration. And at the same time, Congress doesn't do anything about it. So they're all equally complicit, responsible, in league, however you want to look at it. The White House will reportedly block states from making their own AI laws, which is a crime. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. You take your pick. And in exchange, interestingly, it's indirectly backing a national age verification push. Now, the way I read this is a group decision, I argue. Now, there are different agendas, and they have to more so appease their left or right constituents, or however you look at it. But when it comes down to it, I don't think that they're really at odds with the larger agendas. I think they all want the AI direction to go in this direction. Some of them just don't want to be seen for not pushing back on Trump because their people think they think a certain thing. Sort of like all of the people in MAGA who thought Trump believed in all these things, and he does not. Or at the very least, he's not able to give them to them. So in this case, you have the AI push, right? And you have Democrats, or however, I think that's what this is framed as, is sort of saying, well, we'll give you that. We'll let you not allow us to regulate it, even though it's not their ability to say we give up our constitutional rights. But in exchange, we want you, Trump, and your administration to pass all of these laws that completely crack down on the internet. And it appears this is something that's going forward. So Reclaim the Net, who has a pretty good track record in my experience. So to post online, you'd upload a government ID or do a face scan through the Kids Online Safety Act and No Fakes Act, just like what's happening in the UK. This is happening through the Trump administration, and it will get so little coverage because most of the people that were screaming about this will try to deviate your attention because they don't seem to actually care about any of this. And I don't even remotely mean a majority, guys, but I mean a very influential core of people who are trying to keep you thinking you're hashtag winning. Nobody seems to think that anymore other than people that are lying to you. Here's an article about this. Trump moves to deeply censor the entire internet. It says, the White House and Congress are working to deal. I think it's actually still here. The White House and Congress are working on a deal, to clamp down on what U.S. citizens are allowed to say online. What a chilling thing. That's an opening sentence, guys. So that means all of your government are working together to find ways to come to agreement on how they are going to restrict what you can say online. If you ever needed a better example to recognize that there's not a side here, it's about the way they do it, but they're doing the same thing. They want to censor you. They want to control your speech. Each side has their different framing and different lens, but it's the same outcome. I really do think most people are beginning to recognize this. Limit states' abilities to regulate AI in exchange for placing broad federal limits on digital speech. Essentially offering to surrender their ability to regulate AI. These are the different, I think any of the states, but arguably it's being framed as the Democrat side pushback. I don't think it's that simple. Frankly, I see plenty of people like Massey, for example, who push back too. It's not always left. Frankly, most things aren't left and right today. essentially offering to surrender their ability to regulate AI in exchange for 3 federal censorship bills: the Kids Online Safety Act, the No Fakes Act, and a federal age verification mandate. All framed under the guise of protecting the children, when I frankly don't think any of them even care about those things. But when you get into the nitty-gritty of it all, even if it does that, it will wildly affect the average person's ability to freely engage online, let alone anonymously. In a blistering statement, the First Amendment Group Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, otherwise known as FIRE, warns that, quote, taken together, these bills will fundamentally change the internet as we know it. Doesn't get more simple, doesn't get much more clear than that. That's especially striking because FIRE, the group, is funded by conservative private interests, like billionaire Charles Koch, which you can decide what you think about their influence. I don't see Charles Koch as technically even partisan, like any of them, frankly. Any of these large influencers, like even Elon Musk, they dance back and forth in what's their interest. But anyway, the point is, I don't even see him in that lens anyway. Meaning its opposition highlights the degree to which Trump is butting heads against fellow members of the U.S. ruling class, the elitists. But so it's interesting that we're seeing something about fundamentally changing the way we engage in the internet when you have never seen a more obvious example of who's driving that conversation. Guys, the Israeli government and the Israeli lobby are screaming about shutting down your ability to call out what they're doing. Of course, they call that racism, they call it anti-Semitism, and somewhere in there that exists too. The truth is that most people are going, you're killing children, you're raping people in your prisons, you're murdering animals. Guys, the list is insane. And this isn't even just post October 7th. You could talk about the last 6 months. That's where this goes. Now, this is a quick point. We've talked about actually one of those bills before. We've talked about this direction more than once. This is not a uniquely partisan thing, but right now I should simply put it like this. Right now, you can see that. You can see that both sides are working with each other to accomplish a middle ground for 2 things that nobody seems to want. So on that note, about where this seems to go. And as always, I could do an entire show about those type of things, but not everybody is, frankly, it becomes tiresome to just kind of continually say, it's not always an I told you so type of thing. It's about simply going, I hope people see that. The ones that haven't yet caught on, maybe that'll wake them up to it. But one should be enough in my opinion. But here's an example of what I find kind of alarming from, I'd like to believe that people are able to see this without partisanship. That this is a statement about whatever you think. Like, I guess the best way to put it is if you look at it through their lens, the argument is, well, the Democrats are dangerous. Just like the Democrats would say the Republicans are dangerous. And if you look at it through that lens, you might even go, well, I agree that you can't let that dangerous person be in charge because they're going to break the law or whatever whatever your self-fulfilling prophecy is. First of all, you don't know that they're going to ultimately do the things you think they will. Secondly, most of the narratives about either side are wildly hyperbolic when it comes to what they say they're going to do, not what we can see them doing. But at the end of the day, even if that's what's going to happen, the argument comes down to the core point that Trump is saying, we are going to break the law. We are going to violate the Constitution, even if you say because they are. They broke the law. They cheated. So we're going to do it back to put it back in place. But is that what happens? I never think that's the case. And frankly, I think most of the time this is about trying to create a circumstance to justify breaking it so we don't have to do it anymore. But at the end of the day, I'll let you listen to this. He says very clearly, and I'll play you their little clip version, and then the larger one they seem to leave out, which I feel like for a reason, that this comes down to him saying, if they win, we will simply not let that happen because we're not going to lose our businesses or whatever the thing is. Because, I'll let it play first. Oh, actually, I'm only going to play the longer one. The point is that Trump put this out, or his team put this out with the 25-second clip where he just says the really quick first part. When you listen to the rest of it, it builds to a point about something I want to make about ICE and the lies about what happened ultimately as I see it, but really where this goes in the enforcement arm of everything, including the AI side of this we just talked about, the internet thing we just talked about, because just like we see in UK, we're not talking about some online wrist slap, guys. People are being put in jail for posts about Palestine. In the United States, in UK, in multiple places we've seen. It's something that should get a lot more attention. People that are literally simply, from the river to the sea, or things that are just insane, whatever you think they mean, that we should be able to say, or even the extreme statements of people, that Trump saying you're not allowed to say these type of things, that there's limits to speech. These are coming from people that have been saying they fight for free speech your entire life.
Washington, D.C., there's a Democratic primary for mayor. One of the two leading candidates, Janice Lewis-George, is running a Zoran Mandami campaign. It's focused on socialist policies. How would you feel if she emerges victorious in next Tuesday's primary?
And remember, Mamdani is somebody he said he supported. He shook his hand right there in the Oval Office and said he's basically Democrat MAGA, is essentially what he said. And then everyone went on to call him the most dangerous person alive, even though he literally, it's just always funny how that works out.
In next Tuesday's
Well, I wouldn't like it, and maybe we'd take back Washington, run it on the federal basis. We won't put up with it.
Okay, right there. What does it mean? Won't put up with somebody winning? Or are you suggesting that they're so if they win, they cheated? Or are you saying that even if we know they didn't cheat, then we can't allow Democrats to win? I mean, this very much could just be a troll, just to get people to go, oh my God, he's a monster fascist taking over everything, even though it's kind of actually what's happening, and it's not Democrat or Republican. It's our government doing this to us. But I just find that to be really revealing.
We're not going to lose our businesses. By the way, Washington now is a safe, beautiful place. We had 22 fountains dug that are all working. Not one of them worked for years, for 25 years, 40 years, 58 years.
I just random numbers from out there.
The pool didn't work from 1928 it was built. It always leaked because it was done in stone. Now it's done properly. It's not going to leak at all.
I mean, real, because that's what Americans care about, right? Making sure that the public fountains that you wasted our money on work properly. I mean, yes, sure, if you have them, they should function. That should be your job to upkeep them. I'm not going to argue that your government dilapidation is not something we should care about. But the idea that in the midst of all of this, when you're supposed to be spending less, but you're actually spending way more, and you're supposed to be shrinking the government, it's actually growing way more, and you're supposed to be not fighting wars, and you're fighting lots of wars. You shouldn't be spending money on fountains, or the idea even discussing this, or your ridiculous the pool conversation. Right? I mean, keep debating about why it's different or what. Who cares, guys? They're literally wasting your money on things so they can then secret money somewhere else. That's all this really comes down to. You think he really cares about? I should take it back. I think we know Trump cares about these ridiculous things because it makes him feel like he's doing something. But at the end of the day, these things happen and money goes other places. They don't spend the money they claim they do on just about anything. I think historically we can understand that. But the idea that the wasted fountains and all this different stuff. The reality of what happened in Washington, as we've already shown you, is not, it was at a 30-year low right before this all started. And we'll get into the stats. Take it for what you will. It matters.
But this is a beautiful place now. People are coming. Restaurants are thriving. The restaurants are all closed. Nobody wanted. Now you can't get restaurant space. You can't get into it. We have a thriving community. We got rid of the crime. We're 92% down on crime.
That's not accurate. It is lower. We've made the same point before, but as always, he's hyperbolic in every possible direction, right? It wasn't absolutely falling apart. Now it's not wonderfully great. It was a terrible place for a while, and it still is because of the crime, because of the way our governments have allowed it to become in some of the main locations. And yes, it's gotten better way before he did this, and also since, because he's had police marching through the streets. And so there's less crime. But what you'll find is that it affected very specific crime of opportunity. And ultimately, crime in other ways, pretty stagnant. That's based on the stats. But what they do is they cherry pick and they point. Now, the reality is not even about whether you think it got better. Putting a marched military down the street, well, as I said at the time, guaranteed to make stats look lower because there's military in the streets. Now, as they pull that back, and it largely says there's some overlap, the point is, if they do, and I doubt they will, because now we've got ICE and these little, basically they've got the deployed military element across this country now. It's not as like it was in the moment, but he can do it anytime he wants. Somebody claimed he wasn't clapped at or he was booed at New York, and suddenly ICE deployed to New York or whatever, if that even happens. That's what that feels like to me. But the overarching point is that clearly, once that thing drifts away, and if it does, then the crime will drift back to where it was, because nothing has fundamentally changed. It's like if you locked everybody in their homes for a day, crime would go down. No brainer, right? Does the crime disappear? No. Now it will come back. It's a simple thing. Now, that's not about saying Trump good or Trump bad. It's about understanding the use. What is he really trying to accomplish here? I think this has nothing to do with crime or about immigration or anything. It's about rationalizing the change. That's what I believe. So people can always try to make this partisan. It's not about partisanship. Biden, Trump doesn't matter to me. The military on the streets, the removal of your rights, the lack of not acknowledging your rights. Doesn't matter what side does that. It should matter to all of us.
Think of it, and we're going to be close to 100% pretty soon. You always have some whack job someplace, but we're going to be close to 100%. So Washington is thriving. Memphis is, the people came in from Memphis, 74% reduction in crime.
Not what I'm hearing.
New Orleans, think of that, 78% reduction in crime. They had the safest Mardi Gras that they've ever had. You know why? Because we sent in people that take care of crime.
Oh, right, because you sent military to march through the streets. Like, even if you think he did what he said, so you're okay? The party of free, I mean, however we frame these ridiculous partisan sides, any of them claim they believe in law and order. They both claim they believe in constitutional right. And you're going to literally go, we did it. We put military in the streets. Now we're all safe, right? Isn't that a crime? Yeah, it's called posse comitatus. We don't care about that. And no matter how much pushback you guys put out there, it was because he violated it 1,000 ways, because he crossed state lines with the National Guard, because he did deploy Marines. We talked about this. And so even if you believe he succeeded, that means you're okay doing so outside of the Constitution. Own that. If you believe it, good. I'll even have respect for you because you own what you believe, and you, even if it's a contentious point and people might disagree with you, but they don't. They love to scream free speech and then pretend like these things all make sense. And I'm talking about the team sport partisans.
Chicago should do it.
Now, here are some of the points that I think are relevant. Take it for what you will. It's not even really about this, but I think it's important to include. This is a study that was out. We showed you this before. National Guard deployment to D.C. had no effect on violent crime. Take it for what you will. Studies can be manipulated. The data, I think, is pretty clear, though, when you understand what we're talking about. Ultimately, just to go through it quickly, the point is that the study found the presence only reduced one major aspect of crime, which was people randomly robbing you on the street, or crime of opportunity, which makes sense. That's kind of my point. Others went down to some degree while they were present, but now that they've largely not like it was before, and there still is some, the point is that it has largely become it's a stagnant back and forth. And you can look into it for yourself. It's also important to recognize violent crime was at a 30-year low in this location. Now, yes, could they have lied about it? Of course they do. I think they lie about everything. But you can look into this for yourself and recognize the information and understand that there was a decline in crime based on every metric. I don't know how else you want to prove it. You know, how else you look into those things? We're using the same information right now to prove Trump's point. So it's funny how they go, you're going to listen to them? Well, you're doing that same right now. I don't trust any of them. The data they give you, you can compare it for yourself. It matters to me that these things are the same in any of these places. I find that actually makes my point. These were chosen in many cases because of a place that was perceived to be bad, and arguably was in a lot of ways, like a lot of these places left and right in this country, but we're already declining. We're going in, same with Memphis. Since 2024, crime had fallen by double-digit percentages. In 2025, Memphis crime drops to a historic 25 low. Now, 25-year low. Now, my point is this is all before all this happened. And so the point comes down to, if that's happening already, it might be a little bit illusory. You can decide. It's up to you. Now, this is really where I'm going with this. Regardless of what you think actually happened, it was about deployment. It's about authority. It's about changing the norm. You know, the reimagining. What's the other term they used? Now, build back better, whatever you want. Deputy Director of ICE was sent by the ADL for training with the Israeli military. That's by Jewish Voice for Peace, even though that's called something that's, I guess, anti-Semitic, weirdly enough. But what's crazy is that there's a lot of this. We saw the whistleblower from Gaza, who was in the, was an Army reserve. Oh, no, he was in the Army, spoke up and told us that he witnessed this. He witnessed them being trained. This is not a secret, by the way, so I shouldn't need to verify it to, I mean, always for you guys, make sure you verify these things. The point is we verified them endlessly on this show. The many, many examples of how police, and it's not all across the board, but police and different places like this do overlap with training with one of the most immoral and most obviously problematic militaries in the world, Israel. So it matters to me, right? So bringing that to the next conversation, we talked about this already, the idea of the NDAA, the Senate, the Intelligence Senate bill, the previous examples before that, the many different bills that seem to be trying to aggressively shove this over the cliff. Even though, as it is, further integrating, it's already there. This clearly is about driving this further into integration between the two militaries, the two intelligence. Really, I think on paper, creating what I think a lot of us are starting to see kind of already exists. On that note, even more. Now, this is something we've talked about a lot. That's kind of the way I want to frame this today. It's like, if you haven't seen this show, please watch this. The Israeli election interference and psychological operation industrial complex. It's a mouthful, but that's what this is. This is a guy who, this was an investigation by, I think it was what was it again? It was one of those larger French platforms, but it was, I think it was Haaretz involved and others that basically broke this down. God, man, I'm telling you. I wasn't even going to bring it up. I was just talking about this yesterday about like whatever weird things going on with BitChute. All of a sudden, they never seem to show up in my videos anymore. They just seem to say, "Oh, it's not there," and on for some reason, my show from yesterday is just zeroed out. The one where I talked about this hasn't stopped playing. Isn't that funny? It randomly could just be some weird thing. I just think that's interesting timing. But overall, the point. I just got distracted there. What was that I was just on? I forget now. There's another point I was getting to, but this connects because it's interesting about, that's what I was talking about. This, the election interference psychological operation industrial complex, and this story going back a long way. And in this, we discussed the different major mainstream platforms that broke this down in some kind of long-term investigation. Yes, question them like anybody, always, and understand that what you found was an Israeli asset as their findings that was literally bragging about bringing in foreign countries and telling them, look, we can manipulate elections for you. And they asked point blank. Like there was multiple examples from the United States, multiple examples. They sent, I think it was like 16 presidential elections they bragged about. And of course, they could be lying. But what you can find is this is a very real thing in even the investigation that they saw them do while they were investigating. And so they claim that they'd done this to many countries around the world. This ties directly back to Israeli intelligence. And it's undeniable that you have this happening based on what we're going to show you today, but also the long, obvious, documented reality that this has been happening by Israel to other countries my entire life. There's endless examples like this. We even covered this in 2023. Israeli company caught manipulating at least 33 different elections. That was 2023. This shows from 2024. It seems like it never stops. And this is my point today, is that it never gets truly acknowledged. We're talking about election interference right now like crazy. California, and we should care about these things if you believe the vote truly translates. I don't. The point, though, is that you have this kind of thing happening, which, by the way, includes New York City. Israeli firm, Black Core, suspected of meddling in New York City, Scotland elections, French officials say, and more than that, by the way. Israeli firm Black Core, again, I have my opinions on why they use the Black Cube, Black Rock, and these different aspects. Black Rock is a little bit more disputed, but it is very clearly connected to Israel. I've made that point in the past. Black Core, which is also very clearly documentally connected to Israel. I have my opinions on why they use that, but it's worth noting the overlap, the continual use of it. Israeli firm Black Core, suspected of interfering in France's local elections in March, is also suspected of meddling in elections in New York City, Scotland, and operating in Angola and Togo. The head of France's disinformation detection service, Vignum, said on Thursday. Now ask yourself why this wouldn't be international news. Some people are touching on it, but of course, Haaretz in the Israeli platform is covering it, but you're not getting this really covered by, the freedom fighters out there and the so-called, the countries in the West that pretend they care about this stuff, but will ignore it when it's them doing it or Israel doing it like usual. A joint investigation by the French daily Libération and Haaretz, which analyzed Black Core's digital footprint, uncovered a toolkit of influence operation systems routed through servers in Britain, Germany, Finland, Lithuania. Yeah, just a tiny little thing. French authorities identified Black Core, a self-described Israeli elite influence cyber and technology firm, as the suspected operator behind a disinformation campaign targeting left-wing candidates. We'll talk about both these things they reference here. In France's 2026 municipal elections, Black Core's systems appear to have shared web infrastructure with websites that house the internal systems of two Israeli companies, Galactios and SNI. Meaning, on top of the obvious connections as they frame themselves, they have direct connections to infrastructure from Israeli websites. It also appears to have been used to carry out foreign digital interference operations in other countries or regions, as they listed, like New York City and Scotland. So a couple more points we're going to make about this as we read the deeper articles that go back a couple months in each case. But just understand how very documented this is. And this is the one that I really think is important to check out more than anything. Let's see. I was just going to grab it really quickly. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. Where was that? Here we go. The hacking and disinformation team meddling in elections. A team of Israeli contractors who claim to have manipulated more than 30 elections around the world using hacking, sabotage, automated disinformation. And yes, when you read into this, guys, these people are directly tied to Israeli intelligence. Tal Hanan, 50-year-old former Israeli Special Forces operative. I mean, if we know anything about this, guys, you need to understand at this point that that's not, this is an Israeli operation, like government-run operation. And like I said, I can go through this all again, but it'd be redundant. Do that often enough. Check this out for yourself. Here's a quick clip before we go into some of these points that they reference in here. Revealed, an anti-left influence op in France leads to Tel Aviv. This is another one from Haaretz as well. The fake Gaza charity linked to the anti-left disinformation campaign in France, both of which tie back to Black Core. A fake Gaza foundation to trick people into funding what they thought was Gaza, finding out that it's fake, which probably then leads to them blaming it on Palestinians. Nope, it ties back to an Israeli operation campaign. We also have the example of them creating an influence operation against specifically people against their agenda. We also have very clear ties to AI operations to manipulate election campaigns. What does that remind you of? Thomas Massey. He just went through that. We'll talk about that next. Now, before we get to that, Janice Girl played an interesting clip that goes back. I forget this. I think this was 20. I just looked at it. I forget the exact date from this, but it's not super recent. This is a clip on CNN speaking with, what's his name again? The point is really about what she says in response to his arguments. It's not even necessarily relevant, but I forget his name now. I looked this up earlier today. This is an important clip I actually didn't see this when it was out. I did make sure I confirmed this was an actual clip. And she says things in response that I find interesting. Now, this was before October 7th. This was before this large kind of, I mean, it was happening before, obviously, the censorship around these allegations. But this was an interesting point to be calling this out at this time. And her point is around what is now changing in the media, which a lot of people are seeing. But as of right now, Donald Trump's DOJ is approving another buyout by the Ellison family-controlled media apparatus to take over Warner Brothers. One by one, this seems to be continually changing. Now, this has been discussed. It's not new information, but it's now happening. It's been approved by the DOJ. So first, this clip.
You're so clever this morning saying, Jeffrey, if you supplant the word Jews for Muslims in a lot of the rhetoric that we've had this morning, I think people would find it sort of cringeworthy and reminiscent of a really ugly time in our history. Imagine a Customs and Border Patrol agent, Jeffrey, asking someone, "Are you a Jew?" How would that go over?
Well, Ashley, look, first of all, there are no Jews that are coming in here to destroy America.
Now think about that argument. How could you possibly know that? So, like, even if you want to make it about the fact that, Muslims are more dangerous than Jews, that's you're the problem right there. It's the extremism. No matter what side it falls on, that is the problem. And they exist on both because we're not morons over here. But to say that and say that somehow, first of all, that that no Jew anywhere, no matter what, would ever try to do that's a lie. Doesn't matter what your religion is. People, no matter what they are, at some category, will find a reason to do anything. It's just, the idea is baffling to me that people can go, oh, yep, not along, because it makes sense that we just know that's not the case. That's it's basically like a secondary superiority. Like, you've enshrined people this idea that somehow that's not possible for that one group. It's just as disgusting to say it's always possible for that group. It's the same stupidity, the same ignorance. It's mind-blowing to me. And so here she is pushing back in a right way, which I'm surprised to see from CNN.
They're coming here to get away from these people.
Okay.
I mean, we have a problem.
Again, because if Jews only come from other places, like from Israel, everywhere else in the world. Think of the stupidity. Who knows if he even thinks that?
And saying that we don't have a problem is suicidal. It brought death to these Americans in California.
I got it. You know what? I you there. I'm going to tell you something. There's a guy named John Pistole who just recently was running the TSA. Real venerable guy. He, before that, was with the FBI. He was an executive assistant director for counterterror and counterintelligence, and he sat brought before Congress in 2004. And he testified, and this is to your point about there are no Jews coming to hurt Americans. He testified about, from the period of 1980 to 1985, there were 18 terrorist attacks in the United States committed by Jews, 15 of them by members of the Jewish Defense League. The head of the Jewish Defense League was on jail away.
And remember, the Jewish Defense League has been roundly discussed, even by Jewish organizations, as basically a terrorist organization. And this is, you have to understand, in my opinion, you can just disagree all you want. These type of organizations are about Zionism, not about Judaism. And you will see tons of Orthodox organizations, Judaism and otherwise, well, that's the point right now, Judaism, Jewish Orthodox organizations that will scream about how they don't represent Judaism. Now, you can argue they're wrong, but just don't simply stand there and say that that's what everybody thinks when they do not.
Trial on charges of trying to bomb a mosque in Culver City, trying to bomb Darrell Issa's office, an Arab American. What are you talking about? There have been Jewish terrorist attacks. Should we therefore ask no Jews to please apply for a visa?
Are you saying to me that there's an international Jewish conspiracy to take over the world?
Just think about what he just did. I mean, this is why they clipped it. You heard what she said. No, here are provable examples of where Jewish people did those things. Are you trying to say there's a Jewish conspiracy to take over the world? No, I'm trying to say now that you're an utter buffoon and you need to get kicked off the show. That's the best you can do. But you see, that means he knows that he's doing something dishonest. That's my opinion anyway. And again, if you missed the point, I don't believe this is about Jews at all. In fact, I think it's about the manipulation of Jews in those cases of people that want to create extremism, whether it's Zionism or whatever else. It doesn't matter whether you're a Jewish person in that context. It matters that you did the thing that was a problem, that you chose to bomb innocent people, that you chose to break the law in this country. Does it really matter more to you that it's a Jewish person versus a Muslim person? If it does, then you need to reflect on that, because I simply care about innocent people being bombed. Does it matter less to you that a Jewish people? It's just so crazy. Some people out there are going, it does. And I just don't understand them. I don't think it's the majority. I hope I'm right about that. But anyway, so that clip was from 2015. I just had to find what I looked it up earlier. And it's Legal View with Ashley Banfield. And what was his name again? What was it? Interviewing Jeffrey Lord was his name. So moving forward, we have this example that came up, and I didn't recognize these as being connected until basically this story. I second this one, but we closed it already. The one about the Black Core election interference from Jerez. I'd already seen this going around and didn't even this is a different post coming around that does connect to Black Core that I'd seen. And I just, I first just thought it was just some group out there manipulating people because of their empathy, which happens all the time. Come to find out that it's actually the same group making fake accounts, making fake AI images, manipulating elections. This is a massive, massive thing. And I honestly think this ties back to something even bigger than it looks like right now. That we're talking about where the internet, I mean, look at what we just talked about with Trump and the idea of altering the internet forever. When you're letting these kind of entities run wild and controlling, I mean, guess what, guys? These are the kind of entities that they're working with to secure the internet, whether it's with CHEQ type things on X or the Authentics, which connects to Israeli intelligence, to make sure you're secure and check your identity. Those are the groups we're talking about. You think it's any different when Trump's working with them right now to initiate the Gaza Freedom City technocratic hellhole, as they're now creating a base, a military base right outside to enforce that? It's disgusting. Now, this says, very sad. Israelis ran a fake charity purportedly to help children in Gaza that served as a honeypot, a decoy built to attract people who wanted to help, in this case by aiding Palestinians, and to take their money and their personal data, or both. You see, it's not just about helping, that they also take your information, your data, like everybody else that's doing that. So here, Avi posts that, so who's the shadowy Israeli firm Black Core? Embroiled in French disinfo op and now suspected of meddling in New York mayoral race. New York, just like the rest of them, guys, it's not a secret. There's a lot happening right now. Joint investigation, and we'll read this next. That's about this exact point. But he also adds, and today's scoop, fake Gaza charities linked to the same operation. Revealed, anti-left influence op in France leads to Tel Aviv. That's May 18th, 2026. The operation was designed to smear two candidates for mayor. of Marseille and Toulouse in the south, depicting them as pro-Palestinian and pro-Muslim and as rapists. I mean, this is what we're dealing with, guys. Now, who you can decide all day. I mean, I'm not going to stand here because I don't know and say that they're not, because I don't know that. But what you're going to see here is that what they're doing is saying these things and making these arguments, not because they're true, because the agenda is to get them out of the way, using propaganda, just like they did with Thomas Massie, lying about how he was in a threesome with AOC and whatever the other one they used. Now, it says the French authorities suspect that the entity behind the operation is previously unknown firm called Black Core. It boasted a 100% success rate, but no real entity seems to stand behind that name. This is the company we were just talking about. The Galactios developed a technology for producing and managing avatars, like online, digital personas deployed on social media as if they were real people. Remember, the company is one of the ones they were sharing information with or sharing space with. That, among other uses, can make it possible to run influence operations. However, no direct connection was found between Galactios and the operation being investigated by the French. Again, the point is, but it is today. Because this is from May. Now, today they were finding they were sharing that data space. And now they can at least have, and it gets deeper when it comes to the next article about the certificates they were sharing for the websites. But it says a separate site published phony AI-generated photos that purported to be nude pictures of one of the people we're discussing, presented as part of an alleged Gaza fundraising campaign. I think that was it on this one. So there's plenty of more details to get into. These are the points I find relevant to the larger thing we're discussing today. And the idea being that you have Black Core involved with a fake operation to get rid of politicians they don't like in certain countries. Yeah, not just the United States, guys. And ultimately working with a company that's creating fake AI information to make that happen. Now, it stands out to me that this happened to Massie. AI-generated deep fake ads target Kentucky GOP. This is what they put out. Thomas Massie cheating on America First with the squad. And quite literally arguing that it was a threesome, like they were sleeping together, showing intimate images. And it's fake. It's not real, guys. Now, Massie race breaks spending record as pro-Israel groups target Trump critic. This is from Al Jazeera, totaling more than $34 million. And this was, I think it went up from there. This was at May 18th. Now it says, this is under the money, the bulk of spending, more than $25.8 million, that's the bulk, not the entirety, has come from outside groups, of course, known as Super Political Action Committee. Got hiccups all of a sudden. Super PACs. And we've talked about this for so long. That's the money out of politics point or any of these things. This is how they pretend they're not. Super PACs allow wealthy interests and foreign countries to just buy into these elections. Super PACs are usually used by special interest groups to spend heavily to oppose or support a candidate without the constraints of legal limits, because totally makes sense, doesn't it? On direct campaign contributions, right? Because you're not allowed to do that. So let's make a shadowy, faceless thing so we're allowed to do that. Freedom, democracy. We're such a joke in this country if we pretend like those things aren't obvious. We are being manipulated by the oligarchy and have been for a long time. 3 PACs linked to pro-Israel donors have spent more than $15.5 million in the race. Federal Election Commission data shows. MAGA KY has been the largest spender with $7.5 million. That PAC specifically finances have not been made fully public, but available records show that one of the group's top funders is, of course, Paul Singer, a pro-Israel billionaire investor who has also made the largest individual donation to UDP over the last year, $2.5 million. MAGA KY also received funds from Preserve America PAC, a group linked to Israeli American mega donor Miriam Adelson. These aren't even secret, guys. So even if you want to pretend MAGA KY is some random PAC that was created by Americans, it's being funded predominantly by Israeli oligarchs and Israeli influencers. Details of the finances of Preserve America PAC, by the way, at least in regard to this discussion. Details of the finances of Preserve America PAC remain unclear for this election cycle, but Adelson donated $106 million to that very PAC in 2024 to help elect Donald Trump to president. So it's the same network, guys. It's not even different. And so what I'm highlighting here is that this MAGA KY PAC appears to be the leading element, which is the most shadowy, which I'm arguing is this. That's my opinion. You can look further for yourself. At this point, it's something that you're not able to look behind the wall of the super PAC, and there's a reason for that. But my point is that I believe this is black core, and this is the same dynamic because it was the same hallmarks with the same elements and used in the same way at the same time. In fact, I think that's what we're dealing with. New article. This is about the Gaza element, and they all overlap. You'll see here the fake Gaza charity linked to the anti-left disinformation campaign in France. June 11th. So this was 2 days ago. It called itself Sadaqah Palestine. Sadaqah being the Arabic term for voluntary charity. As I've always said, guys, it's somebody wants to kill somebody, it's a bad, evil person. But somebody who wants to kill somebody and then frame themselves to the world as the hero of the day, the one who, fought to save the person but couldn't, is such a higher level of evil. It's like another ballpark. Because they still killed the person, they still wanted to, but they went on to try to, into some disconnected, some kind of, it's sociopathy in my mind, or psychopathy, however you look at it, to make you feel like they helped and they saved and you want to fight for that while they knowingly hurt that person. That's what I see largely as this Zionist element today. Same thing. You're going to create a charity based on the idea of voluntary charity and frame it as a Palestine charity to help people in Gaza, and then steal their data, probably do things to them if they can, which is what we've seen the entire time, especially if they were in Gaza or rather in places where they could access them more likely, and not help anybody. You get the point. But it presented itself as a non-governmental, non-political nonprofit helping Palestinian families, children, and refugees affected by displacement, poverty, and war. It had a website with a credit card donation form and maintained social media accounts on Twitter, which of course that means right now they have personal access to the information, which no one, and the idea that anybody should ever have their information given up by these platforms should never be on the table. But we know they do it to us. We know they do it when the government goes, hey, give us that information. The FBI needs it. And Elon Musk has complied almost 90% of the time. That was the last stat that I could find. So my point is that now you have information about a group that is breaking the law, that's literally stealing money from people and plenty of other terrible things involved with election manipulation. Is Twitter going to help out? They won't. Instagram, Facebook, and even a paid advertising budget on Meta. So they were on Facebook, they were on Meta's budget advertising platform, Instagram, social media, all over the place. So clearly, I think there was a campaign that people were aware of, and that there's something above all these things that there's acknowledgement that they exist, in my opinion. Its social media following, our analyst found, was largely manufactured. Let this ring true for everything we're dealing with, guys, including seemingly fake accounts. So they've made secondary fake accounts to follow this larger fake account. That is our entire media apparatus today, guys. It's in the new media, the Twitter field. It is completely sabotaged. An investigation by Haaretz and the French daily Libération reveals that its digital infrastructure leads back to that of Black Core, the self-described Israeli elite influenced cyber and technology firm. So in a digital footprint sense, they've been able to track this right back to Black Core. It says, it is unclear if the Gaza charity was part of the campaign in France, as much of its content was in English. It appears to have served as what cyber researchers call a honeypot, a decoy built to attract people who wanted to help, in this case by aiding Palestinians, and to take donors' money, their personal data, or both. Black Core is also suspected of meddling in elections in New York City, in Scotland, operating in the different places we already discussed. Now here it says, this is what the people were in this fake account world. The followers they found associated with this were just as fake as the content. One produced in a so-called bot farm and that mass produces content. Like this is the same groups we're talking about. 221 unique accounts they were following that ultimately turned out to be predominantly fake. Per their analysis, at least about 60% of the followers were inauthentic accounts they could verify. On Twitter, they identified 81 additional accounts that either posted the charity's URL, I'd love to find out who those were, I bet you they're all the people we know right now, all the big names, or responded to posts from its official page. 26 of them were created in this 6 weeks immediately preceding the operation's February 2025 launch. Now, to clarify, I'm not talking about the ones out there who are acting like what Trump is doing is okay or supporting Israel, because clearly they don't even want to pretend to support Palestine. But we know, if you're paying attention, that there's tons of people in this new media field that pretend to be fighting for Palestine and telling you the Jews are doing it. And many of them are wrong. Many of them just don't realize they're wrong. Or you know what? Maybe you think I'm wrong. The point, though, is that I think this is about trying to, those people out there likely were the ones sharing this, knowing that it was a manipulation. That'd be my opinion. It goes on to say, and not all across the board, obviously, but that's where the example would take place. What connects a fake Gaza charity to Black Core? The mysterious entity accused by French officials of meddling in French elections? Digital certificates. The public immutable record created every time a website obtains an encryption authorization. So like SSL certificates, for example. Well, the websites also link back to Tel Aviv company Galactios, whose representatives have denied any link to Black Core or knowledge of its activities. Well, too late. There's now digital footprints. The joint certificates stopped being issued in April 2026, shortly before the cluster's remaining infrastructure was pulled offline. What a coincidence. Just as journalists started investigating the case. So essentially, they saw that we were looking and they yanked it all back. And now they go, there's no connection there. There's nothing to see. Well, too late, guys. You could prove that they had a digital connection. They were sharing databases. It's not hard to see. Who the honeypot was built for, whether anyone actually donated, and where any money went remains unknown. Some of these people, like Twitter, would know. The people behind Twitter and Instagram accounts, of course, did not respond for comment. Think about having all of this. This is just from May, or even going back to 2023 and 2024 of the major, multinational mainstream covered discussions of how Israel was literally altering elections, was literally infiltrating, manipulating fake campaigns, and no one's talking about this. Really, it proves itself, does it not? If no one, this is like I said, it's not some individual guy online waving documents. If you've got major platforms talking about it, if you've got major other governments pointing to it, if you've got Haaretz pointing to the evidence that shows it's an Israeli operation and it never gets addressed by the governments they're doing it to, you don't need to question that anymore. Well, I shouldn't say that. Always question it. But you see what that shows you. It shows you that they're choosing to ignore it when the evidence is clear because they're either being told not to or they're involved with it. I don't know how much more clear that can get. Now, a couple interesting more points I want to include here. I just thought this was interesting. It speaks to the whole AI point, and I'm not even sure if it necessarily connects, but it's worth seeing nonetheless, because they've now deleted this post. Here's what he posted first. So this guy, the Husky, I'm not familiar with, he's now deleted the post. It says, when U.S. soldiers entered, Mauthausen, they found bodies scattered across the camp. Talking about the concentration camps in World War II. One prisoner lay so wasted away that he could not raise his head. As the boots of freedom approached, he whispered faintly, "Don't step on me. I'm still a man." His voice carried the last shred of, and there's more to it. Of course, this was very quickly pointed out to be fake. And I checked myself. It very clearly, best as it can tell, is a manipulation. It says it's AI generated. No authentic 1945 photo from this location exists. The quote is a modern fabrication with no primary sources. So the quote itself apparently has been used before. Now it says the story and image are not documented in historical records. Okay. So you can argue, well, he's using it to make a point. If you want to pretend that, that's up to you. The point here for me is that Ambassador Mike Huckabee shared this and says, this is why Jews say never again. Not even getting into ignoring what the state of Israel and Huckabee are supporting and what they're doing to Gaza and Lebanon and Syria and any other place we could talk about. Modern day genocide happening right in front of you. But the idea that he would point to this as a fake image, as if it's a real example of something that happened. And it's an AI image. It just seems very relevant to what we're talking about today. But regardless, it's just almost embarrassing that this is where we are. Now, just in case you care, the history about this is worth looking into. I usually point to somebody, I'm going to forget his name. Oh my, that's frustrating. It matters too. That's frustrating. He's been an outspoken critic, speaking out about a lot about Israel. It's not going to help you there. That's frustrating. Gray hair, kind of soft-spoken, been researching all of this for a long time. Anyway, the point is his family was in the Holocaust, and he's spoken about this forever. Now, he has stood up forever, Norm Finkelstein, there it is, for people's right to be able to question, to criticize, to do whatever they want around any topic for that matter, whether Holocaust or not. Yeah, that's also called free speech. I don't know why we have such a hot problem with this. The point is that somebody has a right to go, I don't believe it happened. No matter how insulting you think it is, they are allowed to say that. The problem today is that people are carving off certain things. The Trump administration, Biden's administration doing the same thing. Now, the point is he's fought his entire career for the right for you to be able to question that. However, if you look at his points, he'll tell you clearly he believes that it happened, which the evidence backs up. Are there plenty of things that happen within that are worthy of criticism, recognizing there was political manipulation? Of course, with any historical point, especially one that's that contentious, will be manipulated and lied about from both sides for the rest of our lives. That doesn't mean it's something, I mean, the end of the day, my opinion shouldn't even matter. Look into it for yourself. Feel free to criticize it. Feel free to call it out, but look at the facts. And you'll find quite clearly that there's evidence that shows that something definitely happened. But what's crazy is that these people still try to use something like this to the extent of lying about it in the midst of them literally committing a genocide. It just goes, it's beyond the pale. So on that note, on one of the many reasons why the Republican team sport politics side is failing, Thomas Massey simply points out Republicans are in charge because we promised to make America healthy again, to start no new wars, to put people above corporations, to put America above foreign countries, to release the Epstein files, to not spy on citizens, to eliminate fraud. Well, what the hell happened? I mean, maybe save for the illusory nature of this last one, that still isn't even actually the reality, especially when you look at the failure that is Doge or the lies that Vance and the rest are putting out. And there's very clearly fraud that plenty of people have. It's just not eliminating fraud is the last thing this team is doing. You could point examples where both sides, left and right, have stopped certain things, including Minnesota, which clearly happened largely during Biden's administration. They're facts. Look it up in regard to stopping those things. Not even to say that they weren't involved. I think all of them are utilizing these things. The point is that eliminating fraud is the last thing Trump is doing by working with fraudsters and allowing fraud and manipulating everything they possibly can for their benefit. Either way, whatever you think about it, the point is that none of these things are happening. We're going to go next with the Make America Healthy Again point on regard to the vaccinations. But you don't need to think too hard to recognize how completely opposite these things are. I mean, you realize they're not even trying to pretend like the Democrats are why it's still happening, because it's far too past that now. You can't pretend like your failures are their fault when you're in the midst of it. But you see, it shows you they have no argument now because they're not doing those things. They failed you utterly. Hopefully we can stop pretending the next side's going to do any better and try to change this for real. This is the problem, though. And it's not even just about this government, by the way, but as Agorist Nexus Brandon points out, they both worship the government. You have the left with the CDC and the right on the Department of Homeland Security. Frankly, it overlaps far more than even this would show you. But it's about more than just this government. It's just about authority. It's about feeling like you're beholden or owed dues to something. And the Israeli government is abusing that in every possible way that I can see. Now, this is a quick point that I think is worth acknowledging on the heels of the other things we're talking about. Now, I'll point out right now, this is a post about Riley Gaines. I'm sure this has gone around. Everyone's talked about it, it seems. I guess it was a leaked video of her being told what to say. Now, just to be very clear about it, she was paid to do an advertisement. So obviously it's right to point out that what she says and how being told, it's like reading a script for what you're advertising. It's not as contentious as some people are trying to make it, but I still think it's worth thinking about. Because what we're talking about in this video, like, here's the thing on top of that. Would they, if this hadn't been leaked, would they have made it clear that this is something she just read off for money? And even if it was paid, would they argue, I don't believe in them, but I said it anyway? No, of course the argument is I believe in these things. They mean something to me. I've just taken the money because it's just, why not? I fight for these things. And in some cases, you could argue she does. But I still find it relevant to just see through this lens really quickly and see that these huge people out here are not necessarily as genuine as many of them like to frame themselves as. And it's not even about her in this case. It's just about putting this thought in your mind. Because I was just talking about with Zoe, for example, about how, it's, as always, it's been for a very long time. It's just me back here. It's just me. There's nobody else here. There's not 15 people back there giving me signs and showing me videos and having stuff on the screens or researching for me all day, or AI for that matter. It's just me. And all the people out there in the audience and the amazing people in the chat like Orwell and Katie that help me with plenty of stuff. When it comes down to the show and what I do from going forward, it's me. Plenty of the research and things and links come from both them in the chat, and plenty of other people out there that help me. But when it comes to the actual engagement and what it's just me. I think it's worth thinking about, because at the end of the day, what you're dealing with are people that have an entire apt team guiding them through this stuff. And I think that's disingenuous when you understand where it's leading and where the money comes from and all of that. So here she is basically asking what she's supposed to say and then saying it as sort of like, because I care about these things. There's so many in this field today who are in it for the wrong reasons. And maybe, I'll leave it there.
Wait, tell me the pillars again. So it's pro-life.
So, First Amendment, Second
of life, and veteran and first responders.
Okay.
And
First, second. Yep. Cool. The First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the sanctity of life, our veterans, I feel very passionately about. Do you guys, if you're going to talk about, I mean, you hate to even call them political issues, but do you specifically say like the left or the right, or is that something you try to kind of refrain from? Like if I were to say something to the effect of like the left is still doubling down.
Yeah, you can say.
Yeah, but see, in this example though, like as much as we're talking about an ad, like a paid, you're still talking about content and influencing, which most people will look at as not being influenced, just you giving your thoughts and fighting for the team because we're fighting the evil left or whatever they're framing it as. And if you have to be told what to say and what you're supposed to think and how to frame the thing, then it's not real, guys.
Okay, I've heard you introduce from the beginning, so.
Okay, first, that's what I needed to figure out really quick, is when I first, I mean, definitely over a year though. I would say, can I just say that, like around 2 years ago? Wait, tell me the pillars again.
I forgot to say, it's for Patriot Mobile, of course, which we've talked about already. You know, not something I want to support.
And so it's pro-life.
So, First Amendment, Second Amendment, sanctity of life, and veteran and first responders.
Okay.
And
First, second. Yep. Hello, my name is Riley Gaines, and I'm a very, very proud Patriot Mobile user, and I have been for about 2 years now.
Again, I don't want to misrepresent this. You know, we're talking about, you're talking about somebody being paid to do an advertisement, and that's what it looks like, right? You get a script, but this is exactly why you'll never see me doing that. I've had offers plenty of times over the years. And things that might shock you, in fact, that I said, I just don't do that. And to my detriment, I'm not going to stand in the front of the show for anything for that matter and be like, buy this thing. At this point, there's been examples of things that I probably should have done, things that I even believe in that I just don't want to do. I don't want to be hawking things at you during the show. And it's to my detriment, clearly. But at the same time, there's plenty of people out there that would probably gravitate to something else because they don't like that. So you end up kind of funneling your audience into people that are willing to kind of keep throwing things at you. And I don't care about that when it comes down to what we're doing. I care about the content. I care about you guys getting the information. And because I do it the right way, I think is why we've created a system or a community where that benefits, right? Where simply doing this the right, it's if you build it, they will come. And it's been the work of my lifetime to try to keep this going, right? Even right now, I feel like we're flirting with it going away every other month. The end of the day is I believe there's enough of you out there who actually believe in doing this the right way. That's what I think. But and again, I really don't even want to make it just about her. I think it's about the idea that there's plenty of people in this field who are out there doing this for the wrong reasons and are being coached and trained and it's just not real. So hopefully you can question that. Question me. Question all of it. Now, one couple more points on social media stuff. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. looks like he might be stepping down. At least that's the rumor going around, which I think is very, very, very telling. Right? I mean, all these different people, the same with the last administration, especially people like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. and all these people that are like the core. Yes, guys, if you haven't caught on by now, it's obvious that people were played. So Clint Russell says Elon out, Marjorie Taylor Greene out, even though ruled by the court, technically Elon is not out. Marjorie Taylor Greene out, Tulsi out, Massey out, RFK Jr. Well, Massey was never in, but RFK Jr. out. But he says the entire coalition was a lie, an elaborate mirage to skin suit neocons as MAGA. If you haven't figured out that you got played by now, you simply never will. Well, yeah, he's right. But he was also the person that was driving a lot of people to support Trump against people like us who she called black-pilled, just like Alex Jones, by the way. Now, I'm not saying that maybe I truly think he means this right now. I think he believes this. But the point is not always about simply, at the end of the day, guys, it was a lie and it was obvious. And not only was it obvious, there were people there's plenty of us, I think, tired of the IMA, standing at that moment, two people like him going, hey, because anyway, it's not even worth getting into the background. I've interviewed him before. I think I felt like he was calling out the two-party illusion. I don't see that now. The point was that there was people like us that were going, hey, man, this is happening. Like, make sure, and that we got so much attack and pushback from so many people. In fact, that's why the IMA was created. I've brought it up many times because we saw what was happening with this. And so it's important to highlight not only that they see it, that the people told them it was there, just like it's exactly like what happened during COVID. A lot of us, including him, would point back and go, how did they not see it? Well, a lot of us and him would say, well, people chose to ignore it. Well, it's the same thing now. It's exactly the same thing they're doing. And it's also exactly the same thing they're doing when it comes to people like Scott Adams. Remember that? Remember how that worked out? Where after it became undeniably clear that these were problematic or dangerous or deadly, where you could name any, whether we're talking about ventilators or masks or vaccines, kind of same conversation. And the point was that it was obvious. And eventually, people like Scott Adams, who were there trying to gaslight you into thinking they weren't, came around and said, well, I was right, even though we ended up being wrong, because nobody could have known. They really could have, and we can still prove that. But the logic was that I was going by the experts, and that's why I was right, even though it eventually turned out to be the case. Well, that's coping. In this example, oh, by the way, he blocked me for simply saying this. So in this response, this person says, I definitely got played. And Clint says, so did I. We all knew the risks. I still think it was worth the swing, but we struck out. Just reality. I mean, honestly, I don't even mean this. I didn't mean this to be like an attack. I just going like, how can you still think it was worth the swing? Like, take a second and think about that. That you're even saying that you're even saying that it was worth the swing demonstrates that you haven't learned anything from this. And then he blocked me. I mean, guys, the idea that it's worth the swing, but you now know that it was a lie. So what are you arguing? That you should have just, at the end of the day, what it means is we're always supposed to just lurch into one side or the other because that's all we can do. A libertarian should know better. I mean, it kills me that so many people fall for this. And you can decide whether it's honest or not, but there's so many people out there in the fake alternative media that are very enticing for plenty of people in this field. Well, you'll make more money and you'll bring you on your big shows and they'll continue to pat you on the back, but those people are not real. They're not honest. And that's why they've been wrong and lying. And they're the ones right now telling you the deal is about to happen, even though it keeps failing every day after they say that. It never stops. But my point in showing you this one is to point to the idea that RFK Jr. is stepping aside before we talk about the COVID-19 shot point, but realize that there's a whole industry of this right now, right? You weren't wrong. You're not right now, even though you were wrong, right? It wasn't worth the swing if you now know that you failed. It is about rationalizing why what you did was not wrong. And so just like the mothers trying to convince themselves that shot they gave their child was totally not the wrong thing to do for the rest of their lives, it's the equivalent to me right here. So many of them out there. So talking about the shots, by the way, which is exactly one of the things that people like me were saying about what Trump was doing. He's going to continue pushing these. He's going to continue all of this. Well, as Mary Talley Bowden points out, everyone thinks Kennedy is secretly on our side. Proof that he's not. Jeffrey Tucker, $735,720,598 just awarded to Pfizer by Trump CDC for an infant COVID shot or shots. Another $505 million awarded for adult vaccines. Both right here. Not hard to understand, guys. It's not secret. We've talked about this extensively. If you watched this show, you already knew this was happening. One for adults, one for pediatric. The fact, I mean, look, this very well, maybe if you believe that RFK has been bullied or blackmailed or whatever, this may be why he's leaving. Or maybe it's the dog vaccine. Who knows? Either way, I don't know why that wouldn't have happened day one, because it's all the same lie. It's all the same double cross. I simply said, we told you this was still happening from the very beginning of this administration. They're also leaning into self-amplifying shots, which we talked about. So these ones at the moment, I'm going to go deeper on this because these things can fluctuate. At the moment, I think what we're talking about are the same mRNA shots in the context of this self-amplifying direction, because everything they're leaning in with right now, the Arcturus, Amplitude, the different platforms, they're all self-amplifying mRNA, as well as the main one, which I'll grab right now yet again, which was still happening on August 2025. And this is for the 2026 shot. And that is still an mRNA, Pfizer, BioNTech, Comirnaty COVID-19 shot. So all they're doing at the very least is continuing these mRNA COVID-19 shots. I argue as it goes forward, just like I kind of get the sense the earlier ones will do, it will be self-amplifying. That's my opinion. But the fact is it's still happening. That's why I played that clip to start. The reality that he's been telling you that the most successful thing in history our entire time, and people still pretend like it's somehow a play. It's not. He's doing it. It's time to call it out. Now, on a veterinarian dog side of this, I saw somebody share this, and it bothered me that I'm so frustrated by how much of this field will share people's work without, this is a person who put this out on their platform. If you want to share the video, then put the link. It's not hard to do. But so many people are out there trying to sort of gain from other people's work all the time. In this case, Dr. Will how do you say that? Magnus? Guinness? The point is, he's talking about this. I'll play the clip for you. Oh, actually, wait. You know what? I forgot to grab that. I was the Facebook clip. It's okay. I'll share the link for you. We'll just talk about it. But he does a great job. He just really breaks down the reality of this, that you take a shot like this it is called Bravecto Quantum, the first FDA-approved injection to protect dogs against fleas and ticks for up to 12 months. Now, this is FDA approved. It's Trump's FDA, just like Trump's CDC. And it's not just Donald Trump, but it's about this current administration saying they're going to be MAHA and everything else when these are the opposite things that are happening. Now, let's go through why I find this to be incredibly dangerous. This is the kind of the data sheet for it. Bravecto Quantum kills adult fleas and is indicated for the treatment and prevention of flea infestations. Tick control infestations. So just think about that. Like, just on the basis of we're not talking about something, which, by the way, if you don't understand any of these things, any of them, you should never be giving these things to your dogs, cats, or anything. Any of them. The flea treatment, tick, all these things are very, very dangerous for your dogs. And yeah, they certainly stop the fleas and ticks, but they also probably shave off decades from your dog's life. If you listen to there's plenty of veterinarians out there who will scream about this, and the rest of them are trying to make money. I mean, the data's been there for a very long time. The one size fits all everything, for a Chihuahua to a Great Dane doesn't make a difference. And guys, it's easy to see. I can play plenty of clips of veterinarians sitting in front of government going, I've got all these peer-reviewed studies and no one wants to listen to me. It's like you're killing dogs and nobody cares because there's too much money being made. And plenty of other dark things, I think, too. But the idea that it's not about something you give them to sort of stop or, prevent. You're talking about something that's made to prevent infestations of fleas, things you spray around to stop an infestation, right? This is an insecticide. That's what this is. In cases of accidental self-injection, seek medical advice immediately and show the package insert to a physician. Right? So if you accidentally barely inject yourself, run to the hospital, but give it to your dog who's half your size. This is called fluorolaner, which is the actual name of the I think active chemical, is a member of the isoxazoline class. This class has been associated with neurological adverse reactions, including tremors, which is a huge thing they're reporting, seizures and tremors, ataxia, which I forgot to look up, which was the loss of full control of bodily movements. Great. And seizures. Seizures have been reported in dogs receiving this exact class of drugs, even in dogs without a history of seizures. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures and neurologic disorders. Now, one thing I'm going to show you is plenty of them doctors who actually even say this might work, who are saying, but we should make this a 30-day treatment. The idea of a year-long is where the biggest problem comes from. Right, so the risk you're seeing here, and that's one of the things the doctor said right there, the veterinarian, is that now you're talking about something that goes on for a year. So if they start to have these issues, you can't take it back out. There's no limit there. So it's going to be something that is going to compound. And most people are going to give these things to their dogs reflexively, without even thinking about it, year after year after year. Now, the chemical itself, fluorolaner, is a member, I read that, it's hypersensitivity reactions, including anaphylaxis, always good. The system of effectiveness. The safety and effectiveness of Bravecto Quantum has not been evaluated in dogs less than 6 months of age. But how much you want to bet it's something that gets just reflexively given to puppies, like under 6 months. That's my opinion. I'm just saying how much. I've shown you this with vaccines for humans, where there's an example of like hasn't been tested in pregnancy, and then you sit Rite Aid is saying get it with your safe for pregnant, or it's endless. Or get it with your flu shot, even though it says right there, not tested with other vaccines. It happens every time. So in this case, I'm willing to bet you that vets will just start giving it because it's safe and effective, and they give it to the dog the moment they get them. Because they don't want fleas, right? The safety of Bravecto Quantum has not been evaluated in breeding, pregnant, and lactating dogs. Same conversation, right? The idea that we're talking about dogs who are either pregnant or lactating and then it's not being tested in them. So, and then if it translates to other dogs, right? That's the important part. I think that's something we need to continue to talk about.
Anyway, welcome to the State Department. I think we have some interns in the back. Welcome. Good to see you in this exercise in transparency and democracy.
Is that what it is?
Sorry,
I thought it was.
I didn't mean to break.
I thought it was an exercise in spin and obfuscation.
It's weird. So continuing, this is an important point for lactating dogs and whether this translates. And I think that's something that never gets dealt with because of the obvious problem it creates. Reproductive adverse events have been reported following use of Bravecto. Reproductive adverse events have been reported, so there's same as always. In a well-controlled U.S. field study of 225 dogs, reported 6 seizures in 9 months starting 23 days after the initial dose. A second dog reported 8 seizures starting 57 days after the initial dose. The dog was removed from the study on day 84 because that's what they do, Oh, it's dangerous for the dog. Get him out of the study before he can die, right? Or before ultimately that can then be cataloged with one of the long-term risks. It happens every single time. Hives, facial edema, vomiting, heavy breathing within the first 12 hours. One dog exhibited transient arrhythmia 10 minutes post-injection that resolved within an hour. One dog had a non-painful swollen upper eyelid observed for 24 hours post-treatment. In a margin of safety study, 32 healthy, intact beagle dogs. So good thing we're still testing on beagles. I thought that stopped, RFK Jr. It says, during the study, one male in the 3X group was euthanized due to a prolapsed rectum and replaced on day 15. Do you think that reflects in the safety studies? One male in the 3X group was euthanized on day 475 due to seizures. Injection site swelling in the 1X group lasted up to 32 days after the first injection, up to 62 days after the second injection, and persisted in some dogs throughout the dosing interval after the 3rd through 6th injections, meaning they had like an infection site swelling and, problematic the entire time, months. Occasional arrhythmia occurred in all treatment groups. No big deal. An occasional arrhythmia in every possible group we did it in. So pretty sure you can expect that if you're taking this for your dog. Abnormal macroscopic changes at the injection site included accumulation of tan material only in the dogs administered this specific thing. What the hell does that mean? I guess the point is we'll never get to know. So abnormal macroscopic changes at the injection sites included accumulation of some random tan material only in the dogs who got Bravecto, not the control group. I guess we'll just never follow up on that. Who cares? Move forward. It's like, and maybe it's benign, but what the hell is that? This is a very dangerous thing, in my opinion, like all the stuff they're giving, including fibrosis, minimal to moderate. What is that now? Granulomatous inflammation, minimal to moderate, and a histiocytic infiltration. And we're talking about 32 healthy dogs. 32. And that's all the stuff that happened right there. Now, look, as always, I'm not trying to act like this is, some major. The point is simple, guys. This is something that is barely, it's something that nobody seems to be concerned about when it comes to the risks. If you're going to make a product that kills dogs, it shouldn't be like, well, most of them survive. It should be like back to the drawing board, right? Make something that doesn't hurt this many dogs because humans want to have an easier time without fleas, and realizing that even the fact that they have such a prevalence of those things in their atmosphere or in their environment is because of all the stuff they do in the area, and because of all the pesticides they spray, and because of all the, the trapping and the different things they do that are not for the interest of surviving, right? The different things they dropping vaccine pellets for the animals in the wild and all these things that I can prove to you right now have compounding effects that ultimately create an imbalance within your system. And then you get mites everywhere, or ticks and fleas. And it's not, in some cases, I argue by design, but you can decide that. So here is the American Animal Hospital Association, Bravecto Quantum. And this is a mainstream discussion, and this is very benign, but this is even what they state on this platform, which is largely going, this is going to help everybody. It says, this formulation of the drug is so long-acting, the potential for perpetuating seizures as the drug is continually released is definitely a concern. Direct quote. Although there is not an official recommendation provided by the manufacturer, it would seem clinically prudent to first give a shorter acting oral dose. See, so great. So now they're going to claim either omit, like the fact that we're not giving a recommend, you can give however much you want, but do it for a year because it works. That's how we're framing it. That's how we're advertising it. But we don't say that. People, I mean, are you serious? And so the idea is even the experts are going, well, probably not a year. That seems dangerous, but here, give it to everybody. Yeah, FDA approved right away. Not new, guys. The only real point right now is that if you think Trump's different, he's not. If you think RFK or this administration, they're not. That's the real point. There's so many things like this out there for dogs, it'll blow your mind. I'm just mad that more of it's happening, guys. This is one point about the lactation point. Is Bravecto safe for pregnant dogs? Because let's be real, guys. They're going to give these to dogs. It'll become a background noise point. It's just about fleas, right? It's just the flea stuff. They're going to breed them. They don't want fleas when they're breeding, right? And this is how this stuff becomes a problem, even more so than it already is. Available evaluations indicate Floralana can be used in lactating dogs, and it may pass in and it may pass into milk at low levels. But let's understand that's not what it says. I just read to you, and I'll even read the second one right here, actually. Over here. Both of them very clearly, and that last one was like a month ago, says it has not been tested in pregnancy, lactation, any of those things. So who knows why they're saying that? Maybe there's a new study I didn't see over the last 4 days, but the point is that it does pass into milk. So now you're translating this to dogs that are well below 6 months. I guess that is not a problem. Treat only when there is clear need for parasite control. Oh, so you shouldn't give it to them all the time. You know why? Because this thing's designed to wipe out infestations, not just to be a background preventative thing, but sell it, money, why not? No one thinks that because it's not being advertised that way. So you're going to give it to people that don't know what they're talking about, who are going to believe the vet who thinks this is accurate because they listen to somebody like Donald Trump. And the truth is that it's not the way it should be used. It's not meant to be used unless you have an issue, according to the experts. And this is just one example. It's the reality of what these things actually are. FDA approves first long-acting, even though it's not over here going, we should maybe do 30 days just to be safe, flea and tick treatment. It's also interesting of the tick conversation being around right now. Today, as of the 10th of July, 2025, the U.S. FDA approved Bravecto Quantum. This is the first FDA-approved drug that protects dogs against fleas and ticks for 8 to 12 months, even though that doesn't seem smart. Oh, this is the what it's called. They're arachnicide or insecticide. Now, some of which fall into the broader category of pesticide in general, but technically they are specifically different, but technically that's the broad umbrella for a lot of these things. And they're dangerous, and I've covered this extensively. Here is a study or a article written by Derek. New study shows common insecticide is killing bee sperm. And plenty of other things, endocrine disrupting chemicals. And I mean, this is what we've talked about for years. And you're putting it inside your dog. An insecticide. Why does that make sense to anybody? No, it's the same thing. I think I have some of it highlighted here. There's a lot in here that says the same stuff. That it hasn't been tested. I think I can grab right here. Right there. The safety of the veterinary medicinal product has not been established during pregnancy and lactation. This is from May of this year. Are we going to pretend that they've done a long-term lactation study on this since May? And yet that platform is saying, though they tested it safe, I'm willing to bet you that they were told that by somebody who is wrong. Not even necessarily lying, just is informed by the people who lie about this stuff. That's most of our whole system today, guys. So you can read it for yourself. It's the same stuff. It's dangerous in my mind. The one point stands out to me. Parasites need to start feeding on the host to become exposed to this. Therefore, the risk of transmission of parasite-borne diseases cannot be completely excluded. Oh, wait, so the point is the only way it starts working is after they bite you? Guys, so at the end of the day, this is not even about the dog at all. This is about you avoiding ticks and bugs and ticks and fleas, because the point of the original stuff was to stop them from biting the dog so they wouldn't get sick. And yet now they're going, it doesn't even matter. It's about you. Guys, this is wrong in every possible way. If you care about your dog, don't give him this stuff. But so many people that do care about their dogs won't even hear this. And I'll include this show about obligatory pesticide spraying in New York City and connections to GM mosquitoes and all this stuff, which does overlap. Tetracycline and these different things affected the GM mosquitoes, which are dropped in vaccine pellets for dogs on the ground, or for rather wild wolves and different things. And I mean, even the spraying of these insecticides and pesticides and the overlap with what they do to your, it's just one big circular problem, guys. But I thought this was Maha. I thought it was supposed to be fighting these things and stopping these problems. Apparently not. Well, in case you didn't see it, we pointed this already, and I highlighted how Del Bigtree called it out. R.F. Kennedy signed the PrEP Act declaration to support development and employment of medical countermeasures for hantavirus and different things that are really not a risk like the other ones weren't as well. And he says, Bobby, I remember so many inspiring strategy discussions during your campaign. Providing liability protection to corporate interests for a virus that killed 3 people out of 7 billion was not one of them. So again, maybe he was forced to say this. Maybe that's why he's stepping down. Frankly, I'm never going to be able to look at it in the same way because he stood in this. Even with blackmail, the point is still the same. Even if you can argue it's not his fault, it doesn't change how I see it. I don't know he's being blackmailed. He's somebody who fought for these things and then sold them all out. Like yours, it's possible that he's, handcuffed to something and not able to say no. I'm not denying that. Doesn't change how I see it. Same with Gabbard and all the rest. You stuck this out for months and a year and made this. You supported all of the things you said you were fighting. Now, Stargate, as we talked, as Derek wrote about in January 2024 of 2025, insane how quickly this started. Trump partners with technocrats to promote mRNA injections, AI, and transhumanism. Guys, look at where we are. This might as well have been day one of the administration. Technocrats, mRNA, artificial intelligence, transhuman. Yes, this is what we've been warning you about. And he didn't even hide it from you. There was just too many loud voices to keep you thinking that this wasn't what was happening. Stop listening to them. They're out there lying to you, guys. How can you take somebody seriously who keeps telling you what Trump yells out today after he's wrong 47 days in a row? You got to see who these people are. This has to do with AI-created vaccines, as Larry Ellison told you. This is all part of where this goes, guys. Now, one other part on this that we've talked about a lot, this is new. This is from June 12th, right? This is from yesterday. The Pentagon quietly delayed PFAS cleanup across nearly 200 military sites. Now, I don't really even think this is Trump that, I don't think he cares one way or the other, quite frankly. I think he cares about his image. I think what this comes down to is the fact that if you crack this open, this is my point about dioxins. God, still kills me how we don't even talk about that, no matter how big it gets and how clear it's a problem, going back to the 80s and before, as everyone would say, oh my God, this is crazy, it's huge, it's everywhere, and then just everyone stopped talking about it. Yeah, it's causing cancer. That's why everyone in this country gets cancer, but we don't care, apparently. Back to this point, similar conversation. This is something that is a problem. And if you crack one of those things open, dioxins, PFAS, it's a problem that is almost unsolvable, guys. And that's why they don't ever want to look at it. Because then if you're Trump, you're the one that has to acknowledge that we can't help you. And you're part of that problem. You can't point back to just Democrats because you were there the administration before. And however you look at it, you're doing it now. It's military stuff. This is the burn pits and all the things they're doing everywhere. So the problem is that even if he wanted to solve it, I argue it's in Trump's interest, the way he sees it, to ignore it entirely. Let the next administration deal with it while more people die and get cancer and have birth defects and reproductive problems and everything else this stuff is causing. I mean, it's not just this one thing. I only use this because it's such an obvious mainstream report for something that we can prove using peer-reviewed science, but there's decades of research on this. PFAS, forever chemicals, can cause women's fertility to reduce by 40%. Says at least one of the studies. There's tons of them that show you all sorts of this stuff. And this was in, 2023, right? So here we are in 2026, and they've already pushed this back numerous times. Now, another 20 years we have to wait, apparently, possibly. The Defense Department, Donald Trump's administration, has once again delayed the forever chemical cleanup. Yeah, and so did Biden, and so did Trump before him. For nearly 200 U.S. military locations. There's cleanups necessary. They have timelines they've been planning for, and they keep kicking it down the road. This time, by an average of about a decade. According to the NOTUS analysis of previously unreported updates to Pentagon records. The delays, which affect sites in 42 states, the whole country is the problem, guys, as well as Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, go well beyond those first reported by the New York Times last year. The delays also include 15 sites where military PFAS contamination, forever chemicals, That's why they're called that for a reason, because they can't get rid of them, had already spread into nearby drinking water systems at levels that federal regulators considered unsafe over a lifetime of exposure. It has a very benign, it's way worse than that if you look at any number of examples. What they're saying in a very broad way is that the risk that we can see right here in just surface level is dangerous if you consume water from this throughout your lifetime. But the point is, as we've seen, there's high elements of this in a lot of other areas that aren't just some passing surface level issue. But either way, guys, and you can read the New York Times article, it's not that bad. It's clearly showing you a very real problem that they know about and have known about for a very long time and are kicking it down the road like every other thing they're doing, like food dyes, like any number of things. Now, those delays extend a cleanup process that federal, state, and local lawmakers say has already gone on too long. At Camp Grayling, a Michigan National Guard training site that's become one of the state's most prominent military contamination sites, portions of the preparation for cleanup will take until 2043, at least 10 to 15 years longer than previously projected. And right now they're kicking these things. What the whole point is delaying the initiation of something that's going to take that long. The longer you delay, the more damage is caused. And what that means is directly to you. So you have the government knowing that this is causing cancer, causing birth defects, hurting you, and they just let it go. Because they don't care. I mean, there's no way to misunderstand that. They're putting off your interest for what they're doing right now. And that's always what they do. Sometime between mid-May and early June, the Department of Defense removed from its website the previous schedule for assessing and cleaning up forever chemicals at more than 700 sites. Of course, they don't want you to know that they're doing that. New timelines with a plan that shows the military pushing back the cleanup process anywhere from 1 to 20 years across the 178 different sites. While the Department of War strives to maintain original schedules, shifts may occur due to unique factors encountered at some sites. That's what they wrote. So kick me 20 years for people to keep getting sick and dying and having birth defects. But, we'll strive to maintain that original schedule. But, shifts might occur due to unique things that happen in some places. Cool. So meaningless statement that means you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And it's because of that thing we said. Got it. Now here is the country. The maroon, these ones, 15 plus years they've been letting this go on. These ones are 10 to 14 years, 5 to 9, 1 to 5. All of it. This is just PFAS, guys. And this is what we know about, what we can prove. We're being poisoned. It's what Catherine says. The great poisoning is happening, and a lot of it is deliberate. So far, defense officials have found, and really, in the sense, I would argue deliberate in the sense of it's like a byproduct. Like they're doing this for other reasons, and it starts to happen is something that's chosen not to stop because of the interest that it may help, but also because they don't want to acknowledge the problem. Defense officials have found 54 military sites where forever chemicals are confirmed to be posing health risks right now to nearby communities. You have American government that has found out by their own research that what they're doing is hurting Americans right next to them, and they still don't care. Not Biden, not Trump, not Obama. Doesn't matter, guys. It's the same thing. 15 of those locations are among those facing new substantial delays. Says the Trump administration recently moved to axe the Biden administration's limits on 4 forever chemicals. As well as, and look, Biden is not some better version. This was, my opinion, Biden framing this or feigning some kind of change because they didn't actually do anything that really changed it, did they? So my point is now what you'll get from Democrats is, oh my God, Biden was trying and Trump's stopping it. Well, you could look at it that way if you want, but you could be honest about what he was narrative is one thing, what happened is something different. So at the end of the day, Biden had limits on these 4 forever chemicals and didn't stop the problem. Now Trump comes back in and removes those the limits. Yeah, that's objectively worse, but it's the same ultimate problem because they're not stopping it. And it says, as well as ease compliance timelines for drinking water safety for 2 more, PFAS and PFOA, which is a huge, that goes back to even more issues that tie back to like I'm pretty sure this is the Teflon discussion and these different examples of these major corporations that have been poisoning people for decades and nobody seems to care. It's not clear how those changes will affect the DoD process. To me, I bet you they never even deal with this, guys. But just add it to the growing list of the absolute laughing Like they're laughing in everyone's faces. Do you think they believe in making America healthy again when they do stuff like this? You can't believe that. And I'll just include this because it adds the same point. Federal court overturns historic fluoride ruling as Trump admin fights to keep fluoride in the water. Derek's been covering this continuously for the entire time. This is the second one. Last one was a Maha, what was he called it? A bait and switch. As they were starting to do this, now they have pushed back. Despite the ruling, despite the evidence, they're trying to stop this fluoride from being removed from your water. RFK Jr. has spoken about this his entire career, and he's involved with keeping fluoride in your water. Make sense of it. Now, let's talk about the biolab overlap to all of this, because this is actually pretty interesting. Now, I mean, there is, it's hard to read this because remember, she's on the way out. And by all accounts, she was pushed out. I mean, it makes sense in a way because she clearly was not working well with them. He was boxing her out of meetings. She said things about Iran didn't have nuclear weapons, and it's been hurting him the entire time. But she did ultimately side with him, which was embarrassing for her, on things that completely compromised her principles. Venezuela, plenty of things, foreign wars. So that I've never, you can't respect somebody like that. End of the day, though, this statement could be on either side of this conversation, right? In a way, you could read this as, kind of pointing to something that Trump might have not wanted pointed to. Now, all the team sport players are out there trying to make this look like something Trump did, and he's exposing the Biden. Well, Biden, these are biolabs that have been there well throughout Trump's both administrations. So this game where they go, the Biden thing in Ukraine is just this limited scope of very unintelligent people or deliberate misinformers. The truth is this has been a long-term thing. As we said the last time this got brought up, it wasn't very secret. We've known about this. We can show you Newland and plenty of others admitting it was there. And yes, the overlap of the defense discussion versus the weaponized thing, it's the same conversation. That is what gain of function, dual use stuff is. Always is. The point, though, is that this is the complicity falls to both Trump and Biden. And so I wonder what her intention is here. Let's play the clip first.
After months of searching through intelligence community holdings and files, today I'm releasing new evidence of longstanding U.S. government funding of more than 120 biolabs in over 30 countries. Now, these biolabs...
And also remember, we're talking about all around the world, guys. So it's like, for whatever reason, the people in the partisanship, well, obvious reasons, try to hyper-focus this on Ukraine in that one conversation. There's plenty of other relevant things. We could even talk about the one in Georgia next to Russia and the long-term conversation of people in the area going, they're poisoning us. I see colored smoke coming out of the pipe shot. For decades I've been hearing that. So it's not new, and it's been going on a long time. I covered that when Trump spoke about it in his first administration, of him saying he was going to stop biological and chemical weapons. And then I showed you the list of all the different places they had biological labs all over the world. Long time ago.
Include labs in places like Ukraine, which could be at risk of compromise due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the intelligence community had previously warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to longstanding threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage.
What's crazy right there, guys? Remember, what she said was literally what you've been hearing. That same statement is essentially what Newland said. They have chemicals that, things that could be used by the bad guys, but they're not using them like that. So what you're getting is a lot of people that are framing what she said as proving that Paskey and them were lying. Well, Paskey's a different circumstance. They just, leave it and the rest. They just lie in such lazy fashion. That's not what happened. Russia's the one doing it. The truth is, though, what she's saying aligns with exactly what the general narrative was. I'll show it in a second. The list of what the post that was circulated about the biolabs that we pointed to, a lot of us have. They simply go, no, it's about defense. It's about pathogen. What the preparedness. Well, both those things exist, if you even think they do that part of it, in the dual use aspect of this. But so please listen to what she says again. It's basically the same argument. They could be. So those that are out there trying to frame it as somehow she's exposing that the Democrats lied about this, it's the same thing they were ultimately saying.
And remained vulnerable to longstanding threats of Russian attack. Warned that a U.S.-funded biolab in Ukraine likely housed dangerous pathogens and remained vulnerable to longstanding threats of Russian attack, seizure, or damage.
And likely is inaccurate, seeing as how you can literally prove that it did. No one's even denied that it does. They just argue it's for study and not for weaponization.
Now, until now, evidence regarding the full existence and funding of these laboratories had been knowingly withheld from you, the American people.
But has it, though? I mean, yes, from their perspective, yes, but we've all been talking about this. We've got the documentation. We've got people on record saying we know that they're there. So it's kind of like them releasing the JFK files and then not really doing anything. Here's the Epstein files all redacted. You know, it doesn't feel like, I mean, look, the information that was put out, there's relevant points in it. And I think it's important to see, and not just from a one-sided lens, but the reality of all of it. And maybe that's what she's trying to accomplish here, because there are things I think are valid and relevant. And I kind of get the sense maybe this is about sort of exposing something Trump didn't want to be put out there for reasons I'll point to in a second. But either way, though, just to be objective about this and not partisan, to me, I don't think we need them to say this is the thing. It's like them going, now we can prove that COVID was in the lab, even though the story has changed. When we first started, that was something we were all discussing and they were going fake news. Then they came back to finally going, now we can prove it with the same information. Why do they suddenly put it together? No, it's about coordination, guys. It's about the narrative and how they can present it to you.
Many of these U.S. government-funded biolabs are currently or have previously engaged in research using hazardous and highly contagious pathogens.
Gain of function, and that existed in Trump's administration and Biden's and the ones before that too, even during the times that they said they weren't doing it, like in Obama's term.
And in some cases, included dangerous gain-of-function research with very little visibility or oversight. Now, President Trump clearly understands the serious threat dangerous gain-of-function research poses to the American people.
Now, interesting she says this, right? And we'll go over this in a second, that they didn't stop gain-of-function at all, in fact. Oh, I mean, they claim they stopped the most dangerous kinds, but then made the point that they would be the leaders in the world of the right kinds of gain-of-function. Just like the sidestep of the COVID shot idea. They didn't stop COVID shots. They just went in a different direction with COVID shots. So you can't lie to yourself. If you don't know that, then ask why. Ask why the people that you're listening to aren't informing you of that. Like saying USAID was shut down. No, it wasn't. It never was. It was simply repurposed underneath the State Department, which is what it already was. Even right now, you can prove that USAID still exists and is still functioning. They just lied to everybody because they pretend Trump did it and he stopped the Democrats. It's all people seem to care about within that field. I still think it's a wildly small and shrinking group of people out there.
And this is why he took decisive action over a year ago. On May 25th, 2025, he signed an executive order to end federal funding of gain-of-function research around the world.
Incorrect. And I'll prove it to you next.
Here at ODNI, I issued new guidance to the intelligence community directing increased collection on these laboratories and facilities overseas. And we're already seeing the results of this increased collection. We're learning new details, for example, on clinical trials that are underway at these facilities and that are...
Well, okay, wait a minute. So you mean that Donald Trump's administration is currently underway in these gain-of-function research? How do you make sense of that? Didn't you just tell us that he's aware of why it stops? But right now, so I guess the implication is either that Trump is doing it despite that, or that there's some secret mechanism doing that without Trump's... Well, either way, it's relevant, isn't it? But let's not assume that that means that some secret group is doing it, that rather, or some like splinter part of the government, or I don't know how you, look, the reality is these are things that are contracted. You can see that it's happening. And I think it's very obvious this administration is doing all the same things they always said they weren't going to do. Do we need to make those points again? Everything, all of it, COVID shots and everything else. So why would this be different? Right? It's about lying about this, getting the narrative out the way they want to, selling you on something they like. The COVID shot points example. We're going to stop the COVID shots. Then in that very document, it says, except for these ones. People just didn't read that far, I guess.
Raising significant ethical, financial, and security concerns regarding the supposed public health initiatives and U.S. national security. Now, despite the obvious potential for catastrophic global impact that research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs can have, politicians and so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, as well as entities within the Biden administration's national security team, lied repeatedly to the American people about the existence of U.S.-funded and supported biolabs.
So did the government of Trump's. So did the government of every part. Our entirety of our government has lied about this for a long period of time.
Not only did they lie, they threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. So this release today breaks new ground, as the information surrounding the existence, history, locations, and funding of these U.S.-funded biolabs.
Okay, now, in regard to some of the new stuff about some of the locations maybe we didn't know about, are we going to pretend that, I mean, right now, are we going to pretend that this is something that the Trump administration, which is she's a part of, is going to put out information about something that is currently under their purview? And that's, I mean, if there was a problem there, that would still be on Trump, no matter how you spin this. So either she's exposing something that Trump is going to cover up going forward, or it's going to be exposed and it's going to hurt him, or all of this is about some kind of sidestep. I just don't know how this lines up, right? Because even you're pointing to labs that are currently conducting research that she just called gain of function. How do you make sense of that and not include Trump?
Has been intentionally covered up by very powerful people who falsely claimed that these biolabs didn't exist.
Okay, and now we're a year plus into this administration and they still do? Okay, how does that not implicate Trump? I mean, there's 1,000 things you could add to this.
Now, they accuse anyone who says otherwise to be foreign assets and traitors to America.
Yeah, that's what Trump's team right now is doing to all of us, saying things about any number of topics they don't want you to talk about. Now, in case you're missing the point, Biden did the same thing. Trump's doing the same thing, or some version therein. It's not about Trump's bad. It's about the idea that the government is the same. Hate that I always have to repeat that, but seems that people can't hear it. When they hear, Trump did the thing, some people just only want to equate it to you hate Trump or Trump derangement syndrome, which in fact, what you're demonstrating when you do that is Trump derangement syndrome.
Now, Odie and I will continue working closely with partners across the U.S. government to identify exactly where these labs are and what pathogens they contain.
So again, that's something people were pointing out. So you don't know where the labs are? Okay, wait a minute now. That's a huge thing to say, which adds even more to the weirdness of what I'm talking about. So if you don't know where the labs are, what's the implication here? Are they run by somebody that's not in control of your government? Like the Israeli-run biolab that we just got done talking about? Or, what do we, the point is we don't know. The idea that you're going to state this is you don't even know where your own U.S. biolabs are, it seems, almost feels like there's more lie to this than truth. But I have no idea. This is just a gut feeling. Because at the end of the day, how would that ever feel like something that works for Trump in this moment? Unless some grand narrative is going to fill in the blanks in about 30 seconds where it becomes, it's the ongoing Biden shadow government or something like that. And that's why we didn't know where they were. But then why wouldn't that have been called out until now? Anyway, it's all hypothetical right now. It's all guessing. But to me, there's something very off about this. And I can't tell whether that's because she's doing something he doesn't want or because this is some sort of outgoing, helpful narrative to keep us ignoring everything else that's happening. I don't know.
To end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and people around the world.
So obviously it goes without saying that I do not think this is just some genuine thing. It could be, but certainly one of the possibilities. This is just her exposing this. But like I said, the point's already made. I feel like we mostly already knew outside of some of the locations what we're talking about. I think the information's been clear across multiple administrations. So again, decide for yourself. I think there's a lot about this to be skeptical. And then, of course, on the Andrew Kovlet Turning Point USA point, which I'm not even going to get into, the many weird things about them and their AI video discussions or their, it seems like the entirety of the conservative movement is turning on this completely fake platform who now seems to misrepresent what Charlie said and did every day. It's just, do I have to say I told you so? Hopefully not. But he says, Fauci lied, people died. So Trump's administration then? Or are we pretending that's not connected? This is why Fauci was given full and unconditional pardon by Biden's auto pen. Wait a minute. You mean the pardon that Trump gave him? Or rather, the medal that Trump gave him and the coordination of the two? An absolute travesty, right? The idea that Biden is going to pardon this person with an auto pen that you just told us was not Biden because it was an auto pen. It's fun to make fun of how silly these narratives tend to be. The bottom line is, guys, Fauci was put in place by Trump. He was praised by Trump, was given a medal by Trump. He was pardoned by Biden. And right now Trump has every possible action to get him in jail and he's not doing it. So these guys they love to sell you on these ideas that they're on the right team and whatever else. The people they're pointing to are not on your side. And as well as anything else, guys, right now with this same point, actually, I think I've got one more here. I'll get to it in a second. The example being, this does tie back to things you can directly tie to people, like example in the Ukraine example, to people like Hunter Biden. And yet, nothing's happening. If you believe that this administration cares about all of these crimes, why would they ignore the evidence that we do know that we have? especially when it comes to a Biden. I mean, it's not hard to piece that together. Now, I'll include these discussions. It's just one small thing, and it connects to California. It connects to the discussion in Las Vegas. This one was about the Israeli citizen charged with the Las Vegas biolab case as Fort Detrick investigates sabotage. We talked about that on February 7th, and of course, it was a breaking story like months later by the new media. We talked about it here on March 26th as well, Israeli biolab update, because that's when they let him go. They dropped all the charges. Surprise, surprise. It seems like the usual when it comes to anything Israel related. Bottom line, though, guys, is this is a large thing, and it's all about misdirection today. Jack Posobiec and whoever this guy is, Kirill Dmitry, he says, Biden's 40 biolabs in Ukraine finally disclosed. Oh, is that what she said? Is that how you frame that? Very, very, it's such a blatant effort to take what was a broad statement, and she did point to Biden, but the idea that it's obviously those are not just Biden. And that's the point. Fact sheet. This is the one they put out. Now, they argue this itself is not evidence that there was bioweapon directions. But if you understand how this works, these were always about, if you read it itself, about trying to find a problem to be able to stop it. It's insane. The logic has never been there. 1 in a million thing, 1 in a billion thing you're going to do in hopes that if somebody else in a cave makes the 1 in a billion thing, that you'll be ready to stop the 1 in a billion thing. It's stupid. And in fact, it's not even actually what's happening. This has always been about a dual use discussion, guys. And this is what's been proven multiple times over. I mean, even the discussion of gain of function in general comes down to the use, the weaponization of these things. If you don't believe that, we're talking about something that could then end up hurting people even by accident. Which if that's what as long as you understand that, it's much more than just by accident, but that's why even continuing any of it through Trump's administration is still a problem. But you can read this, understand what these biolabs were, and the fact that they're acknowledging they exist in Ukraine and elsewhere. Here is something to understand in Trump's administration. And don't take this one versus the other. Biden and Trump and Bush and Obama, they're involved in similar things. 2017, Fed lift gain of function research pause. So under Trump's administration, they lift the pause on gain of function, even though we could prove it was happening before that anyway. But they then argue they added another layer of checks and balances. But either way, they opened the door for it to start again publicly. So that's a bad step, right? So Trump's administration is the one that kicked open that door to gain of function starting again, even though it was already happening publicly anyway. But then they said, we're going to have this new layer of checks and balances. Well, that's what they're doing today. That's what this was. We're going to stop the bad versions, but we're going to make sure we're testing all the stuff. Well, it's the same illusion, guys. So they stopped this 2017. Here's an example of one that started, I believe, in 2020 or 2019 that went till 2021. Understanding the risk of coronavirus bad emergence. Intercept discusses this. We've talked about all of these. National Institutes of Health. Here's one from 2016, actually. 2016, National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Biodefense, emerging infectious diseases, genetics, infectious diseases, influenza, pneumonia, influenza, about $600,000. Here's what it says. Highly pathogenic avian influenza viruses of the H5N1 subtype. We screened H5 virus libraries possessing random mutations in the globular head region of the hemagglutinin protein and identified mutant H5 HAS that acquired the ability to bind to human type receptors, gain function. To gain a better understanding of the mutations in HA that result in transmissible viruses, we will select transmissible viruses based on H5HA proteins derived from different subclades that have caused human infections. To test this concept, we will also plan to identify mutations in HA that increase HA stability and then test these mutations for significance in virus trend. That is literally gain of function. One of many I could point to. This is Trump's administration. Here's another one, 2019. This is a little bit different, but the reason I want to point to it is obviously involves Peter Daszak and the same larger conversation. It's entitled Human-Animal Interactions and Bat Coronavirus Spillover Potential Among Rural Residents in Southern China. It says, however, the animal to human spillover events that lead to emerging diseases are rarely observed or clinically examined. The link between specific interactions and spillover risk is poorly understood. To investigate this phenomenon, we conducted biological behavioral surveillance among rural residents, where we have identified a number of SARS-related coronavirus in bats. Again, this was 2019. A total of 1,596 residents were enrolled in the study from 2015 to 2017. 9 participants tested positive for bat coronavirus. Now, this is just an observatory kind of dynamic. I also include this, by the way. This is Ralph Barrick. I'll just show you that they were working on coronavirus-induced myocarditis in rabbits more than once. Here is Peter Daszak, EcoHealth Alliance. This one, 2014, and this one went until 2020, remember correctly. Zoonotic COVs are a significant threat to global health. This project aims to understand what factors increase the risk of next COV emerging in people. Same conversation. Now, the idea being, again, these things overlapped multiple administrations. Both these last two were Biden and Trump. This one went until 2021, started in 2020, I believe, or earlier. I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I'm remembering. But all of these, based on my research, went through Trump's administration. These viruses have not spread in humans. However, there is a high potential for these viruses to evolve and transmit via the airborne route and cause a pandemic. In these studies, we found that the virus was able to transmit 50 to 66% of respiratory contact ferrets during both rounds of transmission. So, this is the same stuff we've been talking about. And this stuff, all of it, is the same conversation and is leading to the kind of problems we're dealing with. And as we're getting into Trump's executive order, we discussed this here, the gain of function head fake. You can watch the show there if you want. Brendan Circus points out the same thing. The executive order Trump signed does not even come close to banning gain of function research. It bans funds going to China, but it specifically says gain of function will continue in the U.S. with vague promises about increased safety. And this is just him asking, but I'll go through the actual study myself. Now, there's plenty more to go through with the fine-tooth comb in here. It's not that much, but there's plenty more examples. I just want to make the main points quick. The Biden administration allowed dangerous gain-of-function research within the United States with insufficient levels of oversight. Just that statement alone. Because as I just demonstrated, and it goes back well before Biden and through Trump's first administration and well before that, they were all doing the same thing. The oversight didn't change. In fact, it actually, outside of the post-2017 example where they claimed to add oversight but then continued doing it anyway, the point is before that, during his administration, it was the same. So the idea they blame Biden is all politics. And I'm not defending Biden. He is guilty. It's about the sidestepping his own responsibility. My administration, he says, will balance the prevention of catastrophic consequences with maintaining readiness against biological threats and driving global leadership in biotechnology, biological countermeasures, biosecurity, and health research. Now, it doesn't mean if you understand, that's the same thing. But it gets explosive down here. But leaders in biotechnology, biocountermeasures, that's what that means, guys. It's balancing that need with the stopping of the risk. It's gaslighting. End federal funding of dangerous gain-of-function research conducted by foreign entities in countries of concern, or in other countries where there is not adequate oversight. End federal funding of other life science research that is occurring in countries of concern or foreign countries where there is not adequate oversight. Within 120 days of the date of this order, the director of OSTP, pursuant to this act and in coordination with the APNSA and the heads of relevant agencies, shall revise or replace the 2024 United States government policy for oversight of dual-use research of concern and pathogens with enhanced pandemic potential. That's the one we're talking about. To strengthen top-down independent oversight. Strengthen, not remove. Strengthen the oversight over the problems they want to stop. Increase accountability through enforcement audits and improve public transparency, and clearly define the scope of covered research while ensuring the United States remains the global leader in biotechnology, biological countermeasures, and health research. Now, in fact, what's funny right now, I want to check something real quick. See if this changed at all. Do it real quick if I can, but we'll see. There's probably tons of them. Going back May 5th, let's see. It doesn't go far enough. And I could be wrong too. I just had a thought on one thing I thought was different. And we do know that they all do these things. But either way, the point is the same. And it continues to say, increase account, and the headline up here, secure future research. It's all, this whole thing is about gain of function. It says, increase accountability and public transparency of dangerous gain of function research. So increase accountability and public transparency of dangerous gain-of-function research. That doesn't sound like going away to me. The director of OSTP, in coordination with the APNSA and the heads of relevant agencies, shall ensure that the revised policy called for in Section 4A of this order includes a mechanism whereby research institutions that receive federal funding must report dangerous gain-of-function research and, to the maximum extent permitted by law, include research that is supported by non-federal funding mechanisms. I mean, guys, the reality of this, and please watch the previous show because there's many other points we made. It is obvious this is not stopping. It is obvious that what they're saying is these types of gain of function are problematic, just like with the COVID-19. Well, these ones are bad, but we need to keep these ones for other reasons. It's exactly what they did. It's exactly what they're doing. You know, people can ignore it if they wish, but if you ignore it, it's going to continue. We can stop it if we start now, like with every other point we made. If we do something now before it keeps going, or did something months ago or a year ago when we first brought it, maybe we can stop it. But if we wait until it's being jammed down your throat, that's a little bit more difficult to stop. But at that time, that's when you're going to get all the big new media types that are pointing to it and screaming, and everyone's going, look, they broke the story. Well, guess what? It was broken years ago when we were trying to stop it, right? This keeps happening. Now, this person says both Fauci and Hunter Biden were involved in biolabs in Ukraine. I agree. They were both pardoned by Biden. 2014 is the year of the illegal coup of Ukraine organized by Obama, Biden, Newland, Brennan. Just so funny. Even though both sides of it, left and right, Trump and Biden, all of them went on to do the same thing right through Ukraine, right to this very point, by the way. Still funding it, still funding Ukraine, Trump and his team right now, by the way. So stupid. But the point, guys, take this for what you will. Whatever your opinion on any of it, one of the leading points needs to be, why isn't this government doing something about it? Tulsi Gabbard almost just lit a fire, right? That's kind of what I was feeling from that. She's making a big statement on the way out about why this is a big problem. We're going to do something about it. Now watch as nothing happens. Watch as what they do amounts to nothing but a propaganda campaign and nothing truly changes as they lean further into gain of function. That's my prediction. I think we're already seeing that. But if you don't see these people in prison, ask yourself why they don't care, right? Either way you look at it. Either they're lying about what's happening or they don't care they're breaking the law. You choose, it still makes my point. Now, to finish with the Iran conversation, it's just get ready to be outraged with how stupid this is, guys. I mean, it's just, I was even talking with somebody else that was like, God, I'm sorry you have to keep covering how dumb, like every day. It's just because it's laughably stupid. I don't know how any genuinely honest people that care about any of this, whether they think Trump's a good guy or not, cannot stand back and say, okay, this whole thing, either he's lying or he's being lied to, and he keeps going. It's pretty sad. Now, we talked about this on the 11th. I could have followed up on the 12th. I decided not to because it was still on. It's been the same kind of ongoing thing. U.S. illegally targets water infrastructure in Iran. That's the story in of itself. It's a war crime, major international crime. Nobody did anything about it. Maybe they will later. We'll find out. Trump lies about Iran deal again. So, Clay Travis on the 12th. So right now it's the 13th, right? We did that on the 11th. So the next day, by the way, please, I hope you remember what we went through on that show. So the rehash is just the same old cycle of idiocy. And so the reality was we were left on the 11th going, a deal's coming. We promise it's coming. And I'm going, well, Iran's saying that it's not happening. So, and what did I say? I said, well, we can't know for sure because maybe Iran's changing their mind today. But what we can do is we can look back and prove that every single time he said it, 40 plus times, Iran has stood their ground and said no. And they go, we're going to bomb you. And sometimes they do. And then Iran stands by what they say. And so at some point, you just have to acknowledge, even if they're wrong, Iran believes they have all the cards. just no way you could think otherwise at this point. And maybe they're wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're wrong. And maybe they're going to lose. But at this point, they believe they've got all the leverage. Otherwise, you would be seeing something very different. Unless, again, maybe we go past this and look back and it turns out to be like a Venezuela and we go, oh, shoot, didn't even see what was going on behind the scenes. That's always possible. But unlikely, historically and just in general, I would argue, but it's always possible. Clay Travis, after all of that, and after the narratives in Iran going, that's not happening, right? Until Trump gets mad at them for lying about their next day. Senior administration official just now briefing on Iran. The minute Iran agreed to sign the Strait of Hormuz, will be 100% open with zero trolling or restrictions, okay? Clay Travis, the new media. Iran has also agreed to nuclear material will be removed and destroyed. Okay, well, just yesterday, I don't even know what you call it. What's the word for 45 times in a row? double down, whatever it is, again, on that's not the reality. We want the straight. We want to be able to toll the straight. We want you to give us money. We're not going to talk about nuclear until we get past this for 60 days. It's the same thing I've been saying since April. And here we are again. But Clay Travis heard from somebody and he yelled it out on Twitter and and today I can prove to you that he's wrong. At least on that moment. Maybe right now, like I keep saying, something's changing. When he posted this, that's not the reality. Based on all the evidence we have. As I said the other day, imagine continuing to post what they yell out, even though they've been proven wrong. Like, I'm not talking about every other time, consistently. One after another since this started, at least just post-April, but well before that. He has been consistently going, this is happening. Nope, it's not. And they have a narrative for it, but you can look back and prove that he was lying. The ships that he said went through in the beginning, the 200 ships he just lied about yet again. Guys, these are being proven. His own administration said that didn't happen. I don't know how to explain this. It's wild. But here's Clay Travis towing the line like a good team sport politician does. So obviously that's incorrect. And he goes, and the last part says, because that's what Trump was yelling, expectation is the deal will soon be signed. Okay, well, here's the captain of the red light holy crap guys, Jesse Waters, who says, red light breaking. The White House just briefed us on the new details of Trump's deal, and wow. Sell it, Jesse, sell it. White House sources say Iran's ready to sign. The terms are set, and now they're negotiating a place. The deal? Iran's handing over nuclear dust, and it's not apparently true at all. 1.5 million views. Here's Aaron Day. Sure, retard. Fell for it again. Now, again, it's very possible that, and again, technically this was on the 11th, I believe. No, the 12th at the end of the day. So it's the 13th today. It's 7 right now, my time. And it doesn't appear that it's happening. Now, tomorrow, we'll get to in a second, is where we're aiming now. But when he was saying this was about the idea that they were going to meet and sign the deal together. Well, that changed. Even in the last 24 hours, that changed because what they said was, we're not going to have a meeting. We're not going to let you promote this like some kind of a UFC event, right? We're going to do this, even if it ultimately happens, which it doesn't appear that it is. So again, it's almost not even worth explaining all the details. It's like, because if you're not really in the intermittent, it doesn't even make sense probably, but it's changed because they were arguing the deal was going to be met together. They were going to sign a deal. And then since that point, it's already been shown to be false. Then after that, there was another example of something coming around where Trump goes, well, now we're going to do it electronically and it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not making this up. I mean, I can't even it's probably been 50 plus times where he's been saying this and it keeps not happening. Here, Drop Site News, back on the 11th actually, points out that Israel says that's not going to happen. So remember, Trump said on the 11th that Israel was agreed and that Iran said it's going to happen. Iran spoke up and said, that's not true. Israel said, I don't even know what you're talking about. Not making it up. So now Israel says Trump assured Netanyahu the Iran deal would meet their hardline demands, which, by the way, if you want to know what their demands are, they're exactly the opposite of what Iran still maintains that it's going to necessitate, which means requirement of the removal of their enriched uranium, dismantling of its enriched infrastructure, limits on its missile production, an end to their support for allied groups, none of which is even on the table right now for their original discussion from Iran's perspective. And so Israel's simply saying that's not going to happen without us allowing it and having these things. Trump assured us. Saeed Mohammed Marandi says none of the demands we met. Now, I'm not arguing you take him at face value, but so far, he's been correct. When he does that, you look back, he's been correct. He says, that's not true, that's not real. And then the next day comes around and it turns out that he was right. That's never the reason, that's never to say you should take them at face value. Not Trump, not Iran, not anybody. And he's sort of a representative of Iran right now. But my point, guys, is that he has been proven to be continually correct with what he says about these things if you look back at his entire track record since the 12-day war forward. And even before that, quite frankly. But so at that point, you should go, okay, we should consider what he's saying, which is that from Iran's perspective, they're not going to meet those demands, which would suggest on the 12th at 1 a.m. that you're not getting ready for a deal signing, right? So you also got a lot of this, which I'm not even sure where to fit this in. These could be people that just are seeing the way this platform can give you lots of money if you just lie in the right way. They come out and manipulate people and they get promoted by the platform because they want you to lie about stuff like this. Or it could be some kind of organized manipulation to make you think people, I mean, you can read it for however you want. This pretty large account that ultimately got 1.7 million views, put out saying Iran confirms the Iran deal on 12th at 2:58 a.m. Didn't happen. Not because Twitter says, because it actually didn't happen. It just didn't. That's not what was happening. Officials, they were saying they were still up in the air, blah, 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 right? But Trump was telling you it's all about to come down. Everyone else is saying no, including Israel. Hormuz letter says this is completely false. All reports claiming a deal has been reached, including Trump's own claims yesterday, are market manipulation ahead of the SpaceX IPO. Well, look at that. Iran has explicitly rejected any of the deals. But weird how every one of the adversarial media platforms all yelled about Trump's deal and didn't decide to go, but Iran said no. Some of them did, but most of them chose to either put it at the bottom or ignore it entirely. Ryan Rosbiani also points out that, as he mentioned, the UAE confirms that the $3 billion transfer flight to Iran that was being floated around in the social media didn't actually happen. Now, this is my point. I don't know where to place this because the idea that Trump would send that money is kind of bad for Trump, but it's embarrassing for him. And I'll get to what I think is going to happen. I think this is where it's going. So I don't know whether that's a lie from the side to make Trump look bad or either way, there's a lot of fake news flying around from all sides. Question everything. Now, Martin Kelly posted this, and this is what I agree is what I understand to be the general stance of Iran since April and before, really, but they really dug their feet in post the assassination of Khamenei and the other following attempts on their negotiation teams, and they just said, we're done. And there's been a couple of other things that happened since where they just said even further, we're not even sending letters back and forth or notes, but that still seems to be happening. The Iran state-owned agency says the new details of the 14-point draft memorandum of understanding between Iran and the United States has been released. 1, immediate and permanent cessation of hostilities on all fronts against Lebanon. So right there alone, it's not happening because Trump has said that's not happening and Israel said no matter what, that's not happening. So why would we then continue to think that's happening when Iran has never stopped on that, they've never faltered? And right now they're saying that's number 1. Now, again, maybe something changes by tomorrow, but I just think it's becoming confounding. It's infuriating that people continue to sell these narratives and people that I would think would know better. A commitment by the United States not to interfere in Iran's internal affairs and to respect the sovereignty of Iran. If they're not going to do that, complete lifting of the maritime blockade. Trump's not even arguing he has a blockade. He's like, I'm just stopping you from criminal stuff, even though he's largely the one causing the blockade, at least post this last little skirmish. Or prior, rather, because post this, or prior, now I'm getting confused. After this last little back and forth, Iran has been cracking down even further on the strait. Prior to that, it was letting ships through that were not necessarily adversarial to it with Iran and the United States, or Israel, excuse me. Now, lifting that blockade is something Trump said will never happen until they finish the deal, which means it won't be technically part of the deal until they're done. So Iran says they won't agree to that. A commitment by the United States to withdraw its forces from around Iran. Do you really think the United States is going to give up its, 50 bases circling Iran? They're not going to do that. Reopening the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days under Iran's arrangements, which means they control the strait and they can do tolls. It's not what, and Trump and Pompeo and Vance and everybody said that's never happening. Now, I'll wait. I want to get to it in a second. I think there's a reason, and I think that they're just trying to lie about this. Suspension of sanctions on oil and other things. I doubt they do that. The necessity for the United States and its allies to present reconstruction plans for Iran totaling at least $300 billion. $300 billion. There's no way in my mind that'll ever happen, at least not on the surface. 60 days of negotiations to reach a final agreement based on nuclear issues, meaning that when they make an agreement now and then later decide how the nuclear conversation will go. And that's what Trump and Vance have explicitly saying will never be the case. It's number 1. Reiteration of Iran's commitment under the National Proliferation Treaty not to produce, or nuclear proliferation treaty, not to produce nuclear weapons. So the reiteration of their commitment, meaning that they've never violated their commitment to this. They've maintained it under every deal they've been a part of. Now, of course, as always, you can argue they're somewhere lying about that, doing something secret. I would never say that's not possible. However, the evidence has very clearly been maintained by everybody other than seemingly Trump and, the U.S. government and Israeli government, that they're not doing those things, that they maintained it, according to even Pompeo during the JCPOA that he now lies about. During the negotiation period, the United States has committed not to increase its forces in the region. release 24 billion of Iran's blocked funds. That's different than the reconstruction funds for what they claim they did to them, right? This is about the money that they currently hold that's theirs, which is the truth. Just like with Obama, it's money they stole from them. That's the reality of it. Establishment of an oversight mechanism for the implementation of an agreement. Meaning that won't even, that's like, anyway, it's about secondary agreements that I don't think is even going to happen with Trump and the team acting like this has to be one and done right now. The final agreement will be affirmed by the UN Security Council, which I doubt that's going to happen because I guess the UN is Hamas, right? Final negotiations will commence before the release of half of Iran's blocked funds. Okay. I could have stopped on one, as you guys saw, right? That's insane. And it's not going to be agreed to, at least on the surface. And again, taking what they're saying at face value. White House on the 12th, posting Trump's true social screenshot, says the term, and this is what ultimately happened, is that Iran came out and posted those the different memorandum of understanding points. But you have to understand, guys, this was not secret. That's what's so frustrating is Iran has been pointing to those same points since April. So for Trump to scream about how I'll just read what he says. The terms that Iran leaked out to the fake news have nothing to do with the terms we agreed to in writing. Okay, well, maybe he's right. That's as we just discussed yesterday. Maybe the reality is that Iran is deceiving him and making a fool of him, clearly, by simply going, yeah, we got it. Everything you say, perfect, and standing up and saying something different. But the only consistent factor is what they've continued to maintain for literally anybody looking at what they're saying outside of Trump's inner circle, if that's the reality. I kind of am leaning towards that they're either Trump is being misled by Witkoff and Kushner and Israeli elements around that on top of them, or he's lying to you because he doesn't want to lose. I just don't understand how either one of those makes sense if he keeps doing the same thing over and over. I feel like he would have changed it up by now. So I don't know how to frame it. These things don't seem to make sense. But again, I could see a world in which Donald Trump believes that he has a deal. I could also see a world in which Donald Trump is so desperate that he doesn't that he's go around in every possible way trying to manufacture some kind of agreement that will convince them to let him think or to let him look like he won. That's both those two things are what I would lean into most. So Ryan Rosbiani says Trump crashing out over the leaked memorandum of understanding terms. He argues that he believes that means that's real. That he wants a secret, that Donald, and this is what I'm leaning towards, at least one, like I said, one of the two most likely to me. He wants a secret deal so he can play it as a win. Now, we've been theorizing about that since the beginning of this, since it was very clear, by the way, after a couple of weeks that they were losing, if you're going to be honest with yourself. So this would be, I think, him trying to drive this into some situation where he can then go, we beat them. Like, how many times has he now said that we've won 100 times over? And even if they surrender, the media will say that we lost, because he's trying to set it up for knowing that's coming to say the media is lying to you. And that's not going to work. But it might win over a couple of blind followers. If that's the reality, mind you, I'm just speaking hypotheticals right now. He wants a secret deal so he can play it as a win. Trump, who bombed Iran twice mid-negotiations, talked about good faith negotiations, is hilarious. Expect more crash outs in the coming hours. He said the terms that Iran leaked for fake news were nothing. What they said, including their weak and pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truth. Now realize even the claims that Iran said they have a deal was not actually accurate. So I don't know whether he was being misled or he was lying about that. I can't even tell anymore. The truth is that Iran was not saying that. There was a miscommunication around the idea that they were on agreement in certain points. And then again, whether or not that's Trump agreeing to things that they want and then lying, or vice versa. And it's just convoluted by design, I think. Very dishonorable people to deal with. So wait, so you're dealing with them, even though you won, and you could just take over everything. You could march in there tomorrow and take everything over, and they're dishonorable and they're terrorists, but let's keep trying to work this out. Like, nobody believes that right now. With them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith. Then why are you continuing to deal with them? He's describing himself, or at the very least, the partners that are fooling him. Amazing. Also, they're totally rebuffed drone attack last night, which we'll get into. Indian ships leaving Hormuz is totally unacceptable. Right. The ships that you tried to force through, even though you know that you're illegally trying to force, that you're in the midst of a war and you're trying to force through ships that you know they already said they're going to stop, or the idea that you literally just bombed Indian ships, the U.S. government did, for the same reason, by the way, and then didn't rescue the people in the water. That's a real story, guys. I mean, these are bad people we're talking about. Anyway, I agree with him. I think that's most likely. Now, treat the Parsi, who, by the way, they're trying to deport right now because he's calling out their lies. He says these two almost simultaneous tweets should be read together in order to better understand what is going on. JD Vance, June 12th. I'm seeing a lot of fake information about the potential deal to reopen the strait and end Iran's nuclear weapons program, which doesn't exist based on the facts. First, the Iranians are not receiving any cash, and no funds are being released for simply signing a deal or attending a meeting. So there was a lot of fake news going around, but that's what they're demanding. So if it's not happening, then clearly they're not in line with their agreement, right? The deal is structured to ensure that the U.S. and its allies' concerns are prioritized, and that if the Islamic Republic of Iran meets its obligations, then economic benefits will flow to them and the entire region. It's framed as if we're giving them benefits because they deserve, we're in charge and we see that we care, we're going to help them. They're not in a position of control right now. I mean, it's obvious with every day that goes by. They're not holding the cards. And so I think him saying that is just trying to stress control, and it makes him look more weak. Where was I? Then it goes on. This deal has the potential to remake the region and lead to lasting peace. It's just, anyway, it's just so many, the different deals they've already violated, or the original deal in 28 that they could have had that they bombed instead of, or the JCPOA, or any number of examples that they were the ones that they violated. He goes, I've noticed a couple of bizarre things in the reporting over the last few hours. First, people who rightly, he says, said Donald Trump was a historic president a month ago. Who in the world is actually saying that? Now criticizing a deal based on unconfirmed media reports. Second, people who say you can't trust a word said by the Republic of Iran, or rather the IRGC, who apparently believe anonymous source social media posts. You mean opposed to you guys blindly repeating what you guys say? They're all just such hypocrites. It's hilarious. Now, from Argachi on the 12th. So you got Iran, you have Vance from the United States government. So Iran says the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding has never been closer. That's interesting. That's what Argachi put out. And it says, pending its finalization, the media should refrain from entering speculation about its content. So that's a different point, right? So if Iran is coming up and saying we're close, which I haven't seen until very recently, to me, that suggests that it changes the view a little bit. To me, that seems to suggest that this is the Trump side lying to Iran about what they want to achieve in order to try to get them to a place to where they're going to give them something and allow Trump to look like he didn't lose. Because I don't get why this statement would work if they were the ones lying to Trump, right? Why would they say they were close if they're saying, maybe to make Trump even more confused? I could see both, I guess. Psychological kind of a game against him, which is what they've been doing to them their entire lives. And it says the media should refrain from entering speculation about its content. It says, what was that right there? In line with our responsible and transparent approach, all details will be shared with the public in due course, which then Trump freaked out about. So who's lying? Well, thus far, it's been pretty provably Trump. But right now, you can decide. Drop Site News cites Robert Pape, who, by the way, I don't respect this. I've seen plenty of things he says, states that I think are very U.S. talking points discussions. But he says something interesting. Basically, that right now, Iran is at a point where their leverage is only going to get higher. So why would they possibly make a deal? You can decide. I honestly think that's been clear for a while, but it's hard to tell.
If the president is being outplayed by seeking a deal, what's the alternative? Would a direct military conflict or a permanent diplomatic stalemate serve our interests any better?
No, it won't serve our interests, but President Trump may well find himself escalating. Laura, the big thing that's coming that will make that politician even more upset is we're about to enter the period of maximum leverage for Iran. That hasn't started yet. See, when we hit the oil inventory cliff, as we're going to do in the middle of July, end of July, August 1, that means when our inventories go down, Iran's leverage goes up and will stay up through the midterms and probably a bit beyond. So that is why there's very little chance Iran's going to cut a deal right now. Why would it cut a deal when its leverage is about to grow? Everybody knows it's going to grow. President Trump can talk down oil prices only for so long. Once that oil inventory dries up here at the end of first week of August, as all the world's experts, the actual experts, are predicting. I just spent 4 hours with them last night at the University of Chicago. They flew in from around the world. That is really going to hit, Laura, August 1. The only debate among the experts is it July 25 or August 7.
Oh, wow.
That's the actual debate. And look at that from Iran's perspective, Laura. That means they just ride this out. And then if they want to do damage to Trump, real damage to Trump, you let those gas prices go from 6 to 7 to 7.50 sometime in September 30th. Now you're talking real. This is what I think Iran's looking for.
Well, you're saying.
It makes sense. As someone in the chat also points out, maybe Iran saying that is mocking him, which makes perfect sense, right? Because he keeps saying it. Maybe they played him into saying it over and over and over, and they're just yucking it up about how dumb he looks. It totally lines up. But again, it's really hard to say. Historically, that doesn't seem what the kind of thing I would expect, because they've always shown themselves to be, and this isn't good or bad, right? It's just about like saying someone's a good politician is not a compliment in my mind, but they've been very tactful about the way they've done these things. But I think he's right. I do. I think the reality of the leverage has been pretty clear for a while now. And as always, and it's not an absolute, because the answer could be something I don't see, but why would Trump keep lying about very basic things if he's in control? Why wouldn't he have taken over? These guys have destroyed entire civilizations. You're telling me they're going to waffle about taking over a country because of anybody's risks? No. If they could, they would, in my opinion, right away. So I don't know why, I would argue that at the end of the day, it's because they don't have the ability to do so. So here is another example of Jeremy Scahill talking about Iran's perspective, rather saying that they think Trump is mentally, what'd they say, having psychological issues. So now seeing it in the lens of whether maybe they're playing a game on him, like it kind of adds to that. And it's Iran saying anything in this, when you're dealing with two groups in any kind of any war or narrative war, you can't take either side at face value. You just can't. It's just how you should question everything regardless. But there's always a reason to lie a certain way for any side. So in this case, this could just be them trying to make it worse for him. But there's a point to be considered in all this, whether it's because of his age, just like it was with Biden, or anything else. And the way he has been acting, even from my perspective, is different than I saw, I would even say from the beginning of the administration, quite frankly. You could decide for yourself, but it's worth thinking that maybe there is something else going on here. Just the repetitive nature of this very thing, I find to be, I don't see how the Trump from the first administration would make fun of this, right? I think we all know that. So you can ask why he is maybe different or not.
Iranian sources told me a couple of weeks ago that the Iranian side added senior psychologists to their negotiating team to review the communications that they were going to be sending to the mediators to give to Trump. And they did that because the Iranians believe that Trump is legitimately mentally ill and is operating in an impaired mental state. And they didn't say this as a joke. They didn't say this with any lightness. They said, we recognize that we are dealing with a mentally incapacitated individual, and we've had senior psychologists work up a psychological profile of what they think is going on with Trump's brain. And so we started to cater our messages by running them past senior psychologists.
That makes sense.
Before delivering them to Trump. And they said that we started to then see some progress they almost talked about it like a clinical sense, like they're dealing with a patient, see some progress in the negotiations. And I've also heard from sources that mediators, right now you have Qatar involved in a very deep way. You have Pakistan remaining involved. You have Turkey, Saudi Arabia, that some of the mediating countries are also starting to become deeply concerned that Trump is totally erratic, and that when they have conversations with him, that Trump is saying, yes, I'm agreeing to these things. They then double check, so we can take this now back to the Iranians. Yes, you can. And then they do it. And the Iranians, there's an exchange of ideas. And then things like this happen where Trump says, oh, no, that's nothing, what I agreed to.
Makes sense. Doesn't it? Again, it's just one theory. So let's not, just because it lines up doesn't always make it the truth. But it's interesting because that's exactly what we keep seeing. I honestly don't feel like that. There's more to it, I would say. It's not as simple as just one thing. He's just dealing with some mental psychological problem. But overall, it's interesting because there's been a confounding element to this. Like simply my point of why he wouldn't have just lied about it differently. If you're going to make up something, maybe just make it a different lie this time. It would be less hard to see at the very least. But I think again, it's more complicated. There's more involved than just one person. Ultimately, I think there's a multitude of factors of where Trump is trying to convince Iran of one thing, trying to make American people happy. And I think that he's just kind of losing his touch on keeping these narratives going. I've often pointed out how he loses his train of thought and just kind of circles back to praising himself. And it's very clear, I think. Now, here, for fun, I guess, Janet's girl posted this video just below this. Let's see what it says. I haven't listened to it. She says, Trump's flip-flop the Iranians are referencing, which I'm sure you guys already know if this is probably exactly what we've talked about the entire time.
Major points of agreement. They want to make a deal. And we are very willing to make a deal. Well, I think we're going to end it. I can't tell you for sure when they want to make a deal so badly. You have no idea how badly they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal so badly. I do see a deal in Iran. We were very close to a deal. I think it's close to over, yeah. I view it as very close to over. It's looking very good that we're going to make a deal with Iran. And it's going to be a good deal. This process should go very quickly. We're going to end that war very quickly. They want to make a deal so badly. We think we're close to a deal, and that's okay. We're in the final throes of what will be a very, very good deal.
Today makes 30.
It's more than 39, especially if you count all of the even like off the cuff examples, but some of them are redundant, right? It's this meeting and then that meeting and on the tarmac, but it's a lot, guys. I don't know how you can ignore that, right? Like, and it's just that it seems to me it's just about him. I don't think Trump sees how easily, what's the best way to see it? I mean, he knows he's being watched. He knows that he's in front of the cameras, but it's almost as if he feels he can maneuver anything, right? His hubris just overtakes him. I can shoot someone in Times Square and you'll still support me, kind of a thing, right? That somehow he just thinks he can just go, just feed you whatever you need to hear, and that he's so loved and so supported that no matter what, it's not true though. At the very least, there's a line because people actually care about things that you promise. Shocker. So here, DD Geopolitics points to Aragachi announcing the Strait of Hormuz will no longer be run as before. Okay, so this is on, I think this was the 11th, post on the 12th. The entire strait lies within the territorial waters of Iran and Oman. That's true. There is no international water in that point. I can prove it for the 15th time. It's easy to see. For years, this waterway has been open to all ships. And by the way, that's why Trump was suddenly going, I'm going to bomb Oman if they don't do what they're told. So maybe he just suddenly realized that he was misled about international waters, that Vance and Miller and all the rest were yelling out loud, and Rubio. They were lying or wrong, by the way. And I think half the time Trump just absorbs these lies and doesn't realize it. MS-13. It's always so funny to me. For years, this waterway has been open to all ships with security, safe passage, rescue services, all provided for free of charge, in some cases by them. The Strait of Hormuz will no longer be as it was. Our sovereignty has always existed, as existed now. It will always exist. No one can cast any doubt on it. Here's this down here talking about the deal. If the agreements of the first stage are not honored, we will not proceed to the second stage, which means the stage where they talk about nuclear stuff, which is not in the beginning, which is what Trump and Vance are saying the opposite about as of right this moment. I mean, you can't, there's are two groups that are screaming diametrically opposite things and saying we're about to make a deal. I'll take this moment to say, well, stand back and go, maybe there is more coordination. Maybe this is some grand psyop. It's not what I think, just based on what I can see right now, but it's not to say it's not the case. As I said, anyone paying attention has known this since April, and yet Trump keeps lying or getting lied to. Anyone jumping to repeat as absolute fact, whatever Trump just yelled out is obviously someone you should not take seriously. Oh, God damn it. I should have said that. You should not take seriously. I tell you, man, I feel that it doesn't matter. I double check these things. I'm telling you, that's so weird. But anyway, take it as I'm being ironic. Absolutely someone you should take seriously. That's so frustrating to me. I feel like I even read that before. And it just said, I saw the nod in there. Maybe I'm just crazy. Anyway, continuing. Hormuz letter. This is 12th. This is yesterday at 5:58 a.m. Iran rejects Trump's plan of a weekend steel signing ceremony with Vance. Okay, so this is on the 12th as after the 11th, meaning we're not going to meet and sign this agreement. So the lie that Trump was spinning, that's the 11th show. So what we said in the 11th turns out to be the truth. Not because of this post, but because this is what actually has happened. We're now in the 13th. But we're on the 11th, we're having the show, and we're saying, well, maybe we don't know, but every time since then, or every time before, well, here we are again. Now that it's the 12th and then 13th, we can now look back and find very clearly that what Trump was yelling about was a lie, or that Iran was tricking him, however you want to look at it. So they rejected it, saying that any plan about a signing face-to-face is mistaken understanding of U.S. proposals and wishes. It's a nice way of saying lies. Or I guess misunderstandings, or that we tricked you. I don't know. Okay, so that's where that ended on the 12th. Let's go forward to the 12th to the 13th. That's how silly this is. Pakistan says a deal to end the Iran war is closer than ever, as Tehran shows signs of optimism. June 13th. The momentum for a deal to end the Iran war appears to grow Saturday. That's today. As key mediator, Pakistan said an agreement was closer than ever before. And Iran made some of its most optimistic statements, which means and if you read it, they're not saying a deal is close, saying, well, we're making some agreements, but we're not optimistic. Of course, they just, I guess, leave that out. That means this platform made a conscious choice to sort of lean you in the direction of it might happen. Why? U.S. President Donald Trump said on social media the deal was, and this is the new post, scheduled to get signed tomorrow. So on the 11th, he yelled about a deal this weekend. I think he even said Saturday, but I could be wrong. Then Iran said, that's not happening. We're not meeting. And they denied the whole thing. Israel said we weren't included. Then on the 12th, Donald Trump says we're signing tomorrow and it's going to be electronic. I should just, Iran denies it. Not that I should hold it out like it's some bomb, but it's just hilarious to me. Iran is now saying that's not true. Now, Donald Trump on social media said the deal was scheduled to get signed tomorrow and that the Strait of Hormuz would open immediately. Well, at that very moment, Iran was saying that we would maintain the control and that we would do the toll. So they're right there as a point of contention. Iran Foreign Ministry spokesman said, however, although it will not happen tomorrow, the possibility that it could take place in the coming days cannot be ruled out. What is happening? So right there, right in the same paragraph, Iran's going, that's not happening tomorrow. And Trump's going, we're signing tomorrow electronically. Each side was expected to sign electronically. Meanwhile, Trump was expected to discuss demining the Strait of Hormuz during the Group of 7 summit that starts Monday. You know, the same mines that are simply not happening based on multiple points of deductive logic. That there were, up until very recently, ships that were going through. There still are some. Even when they said it was closed recently, there were still 2 or 3 that I could prove are going through. Or the fact that you can see that Chinese ships have been going through, or you can see that there's multiple other examples of civilian dynamics, or the fact that you can go down the list, or I could talk about the UK admiral that spoke up and said, based on everything I know, there are no mines right now in the Strait. So the continuity of the mine narrative is to make people think that there's risk so that they choose not to go through the Strait, because I think still they have an interest in keeping people hindered. So they think Iran's the reason all this is happening, but I don't think anyone thinks that anymore. But this is about keeping them on the idea that we have to stop Iran and their terrorism. That's what this is about. It's not working. Pakistan Prime Minister said a deal aimed at ending the war was expected to be finalized within 44 hours. Okay, so does that mean that they'll finalize the deal that they'll then later sign? Not tomorrow? And that Trump just misunderstood and yelled that out? At that, again, let's just for fun pretend that's what happened. I can totally see a world in which Trump would do that. If you're Trump, and you've yelled that out 40 times and been wrong 40 times, why would you not double check that? That's Trump for you, if that's the reality. I could totally see that happening. Iran signaled optimism, but indicated more time was needed. They said from Iran that the statement carried by state TV that the likelihood of finalizing the memorandum of understanding in the coming days is high. Iran has long expressed wariness in negotiations, pointing out that the previous talks that the U.S. held last year ended with them trying to murder them. A little bit of a disruption, stays with you. So this is from technically so late yesterday into today. Iran's foreign minister says that Iran's frozen assets will be released if a deal is signed. Right? So right there alone is another example of a singular contentious point that Iran is saying is going to happen no matter what, and Trump and Vance are saying it's never on the table. But we're this close. We're so close. It's going to be signed tomorrow. Fox News reports 6 minutes ago, Trump says a deal with Iran is scheduled to be signed tomorrow. So after all of that, and Iran standing up all day and saying that's not true, he spoke up recently again, and Fox News said it's happening. Immediately after it is signed, he says, The Hormuz Strait is open to all. Oh, well, didn't you just tell us that it was already open? Yeah, that's confusing. Ryan Rosbiani points to the point that what Trump just put out. So this is the 13th at 12:45 p.m. He says, this on Truth Social, the Obama deal with Iran, the JCPOA, was an easy, beautiful, smooth, beautiful? Why would he use beautiful? Smooth road to nuclear weapon, which Iran would have had 6 years ago. Guys, it's just flatly incorrect. I mean, I can go through every data point and show you the evidence we have. I mean, again, you could argue some secret thing, but that's not, there's no proof of evidence of anything. Not even no proof, no evidence. There's nothing to suggest that that's what's happening. Everything we have from their own intelligence, from the U.S. government, from the international bodies, from the UN to the action, I mean, everything shows you that's not what happened. And even Pompeo's point, as I'll point to Aramate in a second, his own documentation acknowledged that they did maintain that within the JCPOA, that Iran did uphold its agreements. So were you lying then or are you lying now? And if that's the case, how can you take them at face value anyway? We lie, we cheat, we steal. But the point of the JCPOA being somehow a pathway to the bomb, it's literally, of course, you could secretly do whatever you want. The point is the actual deal very clearly maintained under 4% enrichment. They did until Trump unilaterally pulled out of the deal because Netanyahu drove him to do it. And that's what kicked off the entire thing. And ever since then, they have still maintained an agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency. And as I just showed you, they maintained the safeguard agreement, which was the 60%, and they have 1,000 kilograms. That was within their safeguard agreement, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency from 2025. And if you understand even the basics of this stuff, that is not even close to making bombs in any possible way. Not only do they need the technology further that Trump says he obliterated, that's actually been verified that the enrichment facility is obliterated, they wouldn't even be able to enrich it further. Even if they had that, they'd have to enrich it over 90% to have the material needed to then make what's needed for the bomb and then actually make the bombs, which they don't actually. It goes on forever. And blinking on his name all of a sudden. Anti-war, He just made this point well on Pierce. The point was simply, if you understand the technology, the bomb that they would be able to make would be like the size of the ones we're talking about, like Fat Boy and you know, in World War II discussion. And the idea that could then be somehow weaponized and moved around the world. And you could go down the list of 1,000 more points that show this. You shouldn't even need to when you fall back on the reality that the U.S. government's own information acknowledged they weren't doing this. But anyway, aside from the lie of the JCPOA, it says, in fact, they no longer want a nuclear weapon. They never did. So you see, this is where you get into the world where he's trying to frame the reality that he had before this ever started as him winning. So you go back to a point to where they don't want a weapon. They never did. They give up this program they already agreed to do. The strait's now open again. Well, it already was. So you effectively just lost American lives, spent tons of billions and billions of dollars, allowed Israel to break the law all over the place, and then you gave us back what you. So Iran gained tremendously, but Trump wins. There's no way around that. That's where we are. Short of the U.S. government taking over Iran, which I doubt is going to happen, but it's certainly possible. They've lost. And it continues. The deal is scheduled to get signed tomorrow. Oh, it goes on right here. In fact, they no longer want a nuclear weapon, nor will they have one, either through purchase, development, or any other form of procurement. So explain to me how you could ever actually stop them from buying something from somebody else, especially since Israel and the United States government and plenty of other of the Western governments are the ones that are happily doing that. You have to understand that even Israel got nuclear technology from the United States. They stole it and they've secreted that to China. And of course, Saudi Arabia, same conversation. But who cares about all that? Let's focus on the one country that actually doesn't want it. Continuing. Scheduled to be signed tomorrow. And immediately after it is signed, the Hormuz Strait is open to all again. Our relationship with Iran is much different and a better one than previous administrations have had. I don't even know how you can take him seriously with stuff like that. You mean aside from you assassinating their pope? You mean aside from you continually bombing their civilian neighborhoods and downtown areas, bombing water infrastructure and bridge? I mean, are you serious? It's just laughable that anybody thinks that it. So the question is always, is he wrong? Does he not even know what's going on? Or is he just lying to you? Unlike Obama's hundreds of billions of dollars in payment to them, which again, he knows or is too stupid to realize that was money they stole from them. And now he might do the same thing. That's how funny this becomes, including $1.7 billion in green, cold cash. No money will exchange hands. Well, there you go. It's been clearly pointed to. I mean, his own administration has pointed to many times that might be something on the table. But he keeps saying it won't happen. So he is trying to build a world in which he can secretly do all this, claim the win, walk away, give them everything, and just yell out, I won. It'll be his mission accomplished moment, guys. Well, he's already had many of those. At the appropriate time, when all is calm, we will go in and get the nuclear dust. Oh, so now we're changing to where we're not going to do that right away. Suddenly, he's starting to walk back some of these things that were absolute, have to be first. Well, Israel is still saying we can't have any deal without that being first. Well, I guess we'll find out who's actually in control. Buried deep under the powerful sunken granite mountains. Well, there's another point you made about that, by the way. I'll come back to that. Ryan Rosbiani made a point that Iran, it's hard to know for sure, but we'll come back to it about whether they purposefully have done something more to stop that from being gained. But thanks to our beautiful B-2 bombers and their brilliant pilots and the downblend and destroy it, whether in Iran or the United States, we look forward to working with Iran and their entire Middle East long into the future. God, just sad. Hopefully this process will work out quickly and easily, smoothly. If it doesn't, we'll have the ultimate alternative, hopefully never to be used again. You know, it's like he can't even help himself. Like, why wouldn't you just end there? Working with Iran, the entire Middle East, long into the future. Hopefully that'll work, because if not, we'll murder you all. It's like, that's what he's saying. It's just weakness, guys. It is weakness because he's worried he'll look weak if he doesn't say that. That's weakness. You don't need to add the same thing you've yelled 45 times. That's weakness. If he doesn't, we'll have the ultimate alternative. What do you think he means, guys? Nobody's confused. He means bombing them or whatever else he wants you to think he might mean. Nuclear weapons that we're trying to stop them from getting. Silly. So he says, remember when Trump was asking for unconditional surrender? Remember that? We won. It's over. We won already. No Navy, despite them continually proving they do. And we already showed you why they buried them under the mountains and water canals, as Robert showed you months ago. It's clear they did that. Then you have the Air Force dynamic that still exists because we keep showing that. Now, we're not just talking about drones either. Either way, the point is Iran gets to keep the uranium. It will get down blended. The same thing that was in the deal before the war that Kushner and Witkoff lied about. If you look further into this, that's in the agreement. That ultimately they would give up their enrichment, they would give up their stockpile, and whatever was in the process of would be down blended. That's what he literally said in this interview. Meet the Press on February 28th. And Iran agreed to all of it. Now, who knows whether they were calling their bluff, because that might have been the case, because Israel bombed them anyway and blew up the entire deal, and Trump blamed them. All of this was already on the table, all of it. The strait wasn't closed. That wasn't even happening yet. They agreed to give it up. They were going to be done as long as they stopped all of this and stopped bombing Lebanon, and they just bombed them anyway. Always the case, guys. It's very easy to verify. You can watch the interview yet again. So he goes back to letting them do that, even though that was the original deal. That's a failure. The Hormuz will open, but he fails to mention there will be fees and managed by Iran and Oman if they allow that, but that would also be a failure. Yeah, and of course, Iran's never wanted weapons, nuclear weapons, according to their fatwa on the issue or the idea of the simple facts you can verify for yourself. Now, Justin Amash says this is like how Trump called NAFTA the worst trade deal ever made, rebranded it as the USMCA, and then called it the best and most important trade deal ever made. It's such a perfect encapsulation of what Trump is. I mean, it's just, you're giving them a worse version of the same thing. It's just, and yet he's going to call it the best deal ever made, like you know he will. Now, same point I already said, actually. Trump said the deal is scheduled to get signed tomorrow, and immediately after that deal, Hormuz is open to all. Okay, well then explain this post to me then, right? Because here's CENTCOM on the 11th saying the Strait of Hormuz remains open. But Iran proved that wasn't true, said, nope, it's closed. Then you tried to put ships through and they got stopped. So, it's just embarrassing. Because the truth is, if we're signing a deal and it will be open after that, then at this point, it wasn't open. So you're lying to us every way you different. That's what the government does. But it's worse than I've ever seen under this administration. Like the accounts that used to at least pretend to have decorum now act like they're in kindergarten. The junior high accounts talking about their girl. It's embarrassing, guys. It's like the UFC motorcycle jumps in front of the White House. We're being made fun of. Everyone sees it. CENTCOM lied again. This has to do with the ships we were discussing. They talked about Iran launched multiple one-way attack drones in an attempt to strike commercial ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. forces have downed all of them. It turns out to be false. But if this just happened and it was, yes, why wouldn't that have stopped the ongoing agreement? Because they're in the weak position, guys. The point was, as you can see here, the U.S. government tried to escort these ships through, and they got stopped. And then had to lie about it, which is what they've done, as far as I can tell, at least 3 or 4 times. Aaron Mate points to Mike Pompeo saying, when it comes to the Islamic Republic of Iran, a piece of paper is worthless. We need to just open the strait and make sure they can never get a nuclear weapon. Okay, same old tired roundabout. Well, okay, then if a deal is worthless, why is Trump trying to make a deal that goes on paper that is worthless? I mean, you can only spin this so many ways, guys. If you keep telling us there's no point making a deal, but then you're about to make a deal, then somebody's making something up. And Aaron Mate points out the most obvious point, or rather the best point here. In April 2018, the month Mike Pompeo became Secretary of State, his State Department published a report certifying Iran continued to fulfill its nuclear-related commitments under the JCPOA. Is he now calling that paper worthless? They lie about everything. Eventually, they're going to have to step on a previous lie. Now, today, as of 1:20 p.m., Iran directly rejects Trump's new claim of a deal being signed tomorrow. So remember, on the 11th, they did the same thing and said, that's not true. And then on the 12th, Trump says, we're going to sign a deal tomorrow. And then Iran says, also, that's not true. The new claim of a deal being signed tomorrow, saying the insistence on signing the deal on specifically Sunday is engineered around his own birthday, calling it a propaganda event that Trump is trying to turn into a unilateral symbolic occasion for himself, along with his UFC White House event, which apparently is tomorrow. The Iranian negotiating team says it will not permit such a media and ceremonial maneuver, explicitly stating that the memorandum of understanding has not been finalized and no signing will happen. That's pretty crazy. It's just blowing me away that it keeps happening. So maybe it's that they were close and then Trump tried to turn it into some kind of spectacle. And that's when they said, no, we're not going to meet. Then he goes, fine, we'll do it electronically. And they just said no again. Again, it's all guessing at this point. But as we go forward, as I keep telling you, we'll be able to look back and be able to decipher it. Like you can all the way back to the beginning of this and see that they've been lying to you from day one. Here is a Ynet News article just to make the point even more clear, because we weren't really getting into the Israel connection to all of it, but the memorandum of understanding with Iran is not the end of the story, says Ynet News. The point is here, the Israeli government is making it very clear. Even if they make this agreement, we're not stopping. We're agenda against Lebanon or agenda against Iran. It's not going away. I mean, we have Gallant go down the list of they've been screaming about how the president as well. We are not going to stop going after Iran, like they told you about Gaza and everyone else. While the U.S. government said we're trying to make a deal, they were saying we're not going to stop. And where are we right now? Israel has not stopped. They're still in Lebanon. They're still taking over Gaza. So what ended up being the correct statement? Whatever Israel told you. No matter what Blinken or Biden or anybody else said, Israel kept going. So right now, take that lesson. Trump's telling you all sorts of dumb things that don't happen, and Israel keeps going. I'm sure you can see the common thread. So here, the truth is, they're not going to stop. And it's made clear everywhere. Here is the, what was it again? Israel Katz, I forget what, Ministry of Defense, right there. Israel will not withdraw from security zones in Lebanon, Syria, or Gaza. All the places they're illegally occupying, by the way. And the point is, Lebanon, according to Iran, as I just showed you, is absolutely, without question, part of the deal. And they just told you that won't happen. And as Iran told you, whatever Israel does is the same as what the U.S., you're both equally accountable. No matter whether one of you vanishes from the earth, you're still holding you equally accountable. The IDF will not withdraw from the terrorist camps in Samaria. Guys, they're now publicly that's the West Bank. So they're just making it very clear. We're stealing more land from the West Bank and nobody's going to stop us. We've been telling you that for a very long time. Now, just to laugh, this guy is such a muppet. I'll tell you, listen to this guy tell you everything Trump wants you to believe about what we just went over.
President Trump here, again, the 3 levers you have if you're trying to end up with an agreement like President Trump is going to end up with, which is a great agreement, is he wants...
I'm sorry. Just look at the Fox News lady. Well, she's just wide-eyed, I'm sorry. I just think this is such a clown network. Both CNN and Fox, they're all the same thing.
Trump here again. The three levers you have if you're trying to end up with an agreement like President Trump is going to end up with, which is a great agreement, is he won the war militarily, then he won the war economically with the super effective block of the Strait of Hormuz, blocking that, stopping all the ships. But then Project Freedom, as it was called earlier. Then it was announced publicly that it was off, but then covertly, U.S. Navy, after clearing the mines, was helping escort ships
hold
out.
on. Didn't you? I thought Trump was going to do that with the group coming up next week. Oops. Just narratives.
Night undetected. I think the markets reflected this because more oil was coming on the markets. Prices were dropping.
That's when he lied about the ships that came out with all, except the prices basically stayed the same. And the clear reality is his own administration said it didn't happen. And they forget we can have GPS. We don't need the lights on the ships to prove that they were there. These guys are ridiculous, guys.
For oil globally. And again, and part of the support for doing that was the diplomatic relations that President Trump has developed with all of our partners across the Mideast, including, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, Saudi Arabia, all of these folks lining up in support of the United States. So,
is that what's happening? Guess I'm looking at a different screen. That's crazy.
A complete shift to the politics in the Middle East. So diplomatically, militarily, economically, three ways to win a war. Trump won all three of them.
I mean, how do you even sit there? See, this is my point, guys. The only people that like this are people that are, whatever you want to call it, the boomer conversation, where people that are in the age point where all they do is engage and absorb media off their TV. And they're stuck. They don't have any of the real-time information. They just absorb whatever they're shown. People that blindly support Trump no matter what they can prove. And I think that's about it. I mean, it's insulting to your intelligence. He won. It's over. 3 different ways he won the same war. But we're going to let them keep bombing. We're going to let them keep controlling the strait. We're going to let them stop our ships from going through the strait as we try to secret them through and get stopped. I mean, there's an endless string of things that prove to you that that's not the truth. Now, we can debate what the truth is, but that's insanely juvenile. He's just repeating whatever Trump yelled out because that's his job. And this is the same administration that has been caught lying more times than I've ever seen any administration in this government. Do the research for yourself. It's very clear, guys. One after another, they keep yelling things out that are fundamentally false. All of them. The entire administration. It's almost like there's some kind of a ritual going on.
And that puts him in the position to end up with a fantastic deal for the American people.
Sure. The deal that they just said they won't sign because it's not happening. But keep gaslighting people. And that's the journalist at Fox News going, well, cool. Whatever he just said, news. Good stuff. Now here's Ryan Rosbiani adding a point that I just thought was interesting. Now I can't verify this, but it's interesting from a strategic perspective. And I only want to consider it from that standpoint, right? That Trump has mentioned the granite and the obliteration, but at the same time that there's material, which, if he successfully, which in some cases he did, bomb these locations, then that would be somewhat the case. But what's interesting is they lied about a lot of the stuff they bombed. The enrichment facility, as far as I can tell, was in fact hit, but there's a lot more to the story. But this is about whether or not they might have chosen from Iran's perspective to, at least more recently than ever, because they keep theoretically discussing maybe going in to grab it, that they did something to sabotage that effort. So he says Iran buried the uranium and mined the entrances. CNN reports that Iran deliberately collapsed the tunnels, and this is the case, I just don't take CNN at face value, and rigged the entrances with explosives around its enriched uranium, making it nearly impossible to reach. So from a corporate perspective, you can see why they like this, because it makes Iran look like they're the villains bombing. It's like, the truth is, this is a tactical move, if it's the truth. Trump spent weeks naming the stockpile as the target on live television. Iran listened, he frames it like this, and turned it into a death trap. Now, what do you think about that? It's interesting, right? Because it does make sense with the way they've been conducting this, that ultimately their argument is they were willing to give it all up on the 28th. So if that's in any way real, it certainly could be, seeing as how they've only argued they even wanted the nuclear side of the civilian side because it was their right. It is. And so at this point, they were willing to give it up. They've argued they've never wanted a nuclear weapon. The facts back that up. So essentially, then after they bomb it, they're like, you know what? We were going to give up anyway. Like, the idea is it's no longer in their interest to try to maintain, if that was the truth. And it does seem to be the case. So then when you hear Trump using it as a point, and you know that he's already failing, and so he needs that to be some kind of a maneuver. If they did that, you create a circumstance where they can't win in any case, because then they go in and try to take it, but then they're going to fail no matter what. I don't know. It's interesting. Because you could have a circumstance where this goes even where maybe it's like they win to some degree, or they at least make it look that way, but then effectively fail on the core promise. Yeah, I just find it interesting. And I guess we'll find out as this goes forward. I'm actually, because we're already past 3, I want to go into this in a future show, but I'll include this. Susie Rizzo pointed this out, and I find this interesting. Everyone needs to read this. She says this was a document in the Epstein files, and it is indeed. I'll include it. It's right here. And in this document, it is included in the Epstein files. It goes over a lot of foreign policy, a lot of different locations, Syria, one of which is Iran. And you might find it interesting. Look, Israel, the big loser. But here's what it says. Discussions suggest that it is more likely than not that there will be a military attack on Iran in the next 18 months. Now, this, I believe, was what was it again? Because it references 2013. I think it was like 2012 was my best guess at when this document is, or when it came out, because it's not dated. Discussions suggest that it's more likely than not that there will be a military attack on Iran in the next 18 months, which has been many, by the way, but Israel primarily. That is going to be very ugly. Interestingly, polls suggest population and IR academics would not support that. Americans never have supported the wars they continue to fight. Both Pawlenty and representing Romney and Podesta, interesting, representing Obama, presented a logic that, if followed, would lead to the war with Iran. Logic sitting in Aspen is fine. Pulling the trigger is another matter. 2 terrible choices. We should look for a third way. Iraq was not a war of choice. It was a war of last resort when all options failed. That's not true. Clearly, that's how they want to look at it. But Israel forced them into that one, like all the rest. August 2013, we will be out of options on Iran. We do not think hard about, or we do need to think hard about the options and sequencing of those options. Think in terms of family options. It says, stop the clock, buy time. Iran has rejected this. Put more on the table, more and more. Secure the big agreement to end the disputes. Could the U.S. agree to allowing Iran to have a limited amount of uranium, say 3 to 5%? If all of the above fails, what do? The U.S. should try to establish a status quo with red lines, where if Iran tries to break out, all this is based on the illusory idea that they were even doing this, which you could decide. Maybe you think they are. The evidence does not back it up. It's become a narrative within the U.S. State Department mindset that it's the case, which then new people come into it and just absorb as facts and don't even realize that it's based on propaganda. We would also want to understand Iran's red lines. Long-term sanctions, limited military strike, big strike. So it says a military strike on the by U.S. or Israel will have serious, unknowable, and unintended consequences. Well, you're damn right. Kind of where we are right now. Therefore, an attack is very unattractive. Iran is close to a virtual nuke. Again, the facts don't back it up, whatever they mean by virtual nuke. They will be there by June 2013. Well, nope, didn't happen. And that's not because they did something to stop it. It just didn't happen. If Iran gets the bomb, this will be a mockery of the U.S. So the bottom line, guys, is this seems to point to where we are. And what it shows me is that they recognized this was going to be not in their interest, and then Israel drove it into reality anyway. Now, even statements like the Iraq war being driven by Israel is not a hyperbolic propaganda point or conspiracy theory. It's literally documented how and of course you could point to Netanyahu saying it himself in Hebrew on plenty of videos and talking about using the left and right to play against each other, controlling U.S. politics. He said these things. But again, people pretend it's not true because that's supposed to be racist and they hide themselves from what's going on. But it's there. I'll go over that in deeper points, I think, in the future. But either way, the Lebanon aspect is clearly not stopping. So right now, with all that happening, and you already know this, but right now, today, Israel is still bombing Lebanon. And as Wyatt Reed said yesterday, Israel has responded to reports of the U.S.-Iran deal by threatening to bomb 3 Lebanese towns 50 kilometers from the border. That's all they do. They just up the ante every time and kill more people. Right here in in Gaza, intense, which is still happening. Despite what Dave Rubin stupidly said, it is still happening. This is June 13th. They're bombing people in tents. As the Savior points out, burning civilians alive. And as Syed Mohammed Marandi points out, let's focus on the World Cup instead, which is what everyone's trying to do in some cases. Ryan Grimm, latest from Gaza. This is from yesterday, technically, so I guess this would be the latest from Gaza, but on the 12th. The Israeli military issued forced displacement orders for several areas of Al-Maghazi refugee camp in central Gaza, covering schools, a rehabilitation center. Guys, it's just insane. Like, so people, even within the rubble they're living in, are trying to recreate their lives, and then they just get moved again. And the people fighting for the Palestinians don't seem to care. And I'm mocking that because the U.S. and Israel claim that's what they're doing as they continue to make these people suffer. And just the, daily reminder that this is exactly what a genocide looks like. It's what a Holocaust looks like. Now, this one, this is like a rendering of it, just so you know, but this is the reality of what Gaza at one point on that area looked like. This is what it looks like now. And you could easily look up the same area, by the way, but you can clearly see this is like a rendering. It's something that somebody made, but that's the reality of it. This is what it looks like now. And there's really no hiding from that, guys. That is an absolute demolishing of everything that they had. And now it's going to be bulldozed and rebuilt for Trump and his people. U.S. military begins construction of a huge base outside Gaza to oversee Trump's colonization plan. It never stopped. Nope. Hopefully that gives some people insight, help people cover these things and share it with everybody else. I've never seen it more clear. In regard to the Iran point, again, just like all the rest, we'll find out more tomorrow. I'm willing to bet tomorrow it doesn't happen for many reasons, but I guess we'll find out. And if it doesn't happen, well, then hopefully people yet again will stand back and go, oh, well, he was wrong or lying, and then factor that in next time. Or all the rest of it, all the health stuff we covered today, the new COVID shots or the new dog shots, well, technically not new, but 2025 forward, but still being pushed. These things are dangerous. It's everywhere you look right now, guys. And these people are actively showing you that they don't care. Rather, they don't believe in what they told you they believe in. That's why I'm convinced that most people, if they are honest people, and I do believe that's most people like that in the MAGA movement are still wanting those things. And the Trump team are not delivering them. And so they are the real element. The Trump team are the ones pretending. The same thing with the Maha side, guys. Clearly, there's tons of people like Mary Talley Bowden who says he double-crossed. He's not on her side anymore, if he ever was. So is she fake Maha or is he fake Maha? That's obvious, right? She believes in it. She's real. Even if she thought they were going to give it to her, even if they voted for Trump, they now recognize they were lied to. That's the real Maha, the real MAGA. The other side's fake. Now, I don't know why that's still confusing. There's still a conflation between, how MAGA thinks this and believes whatever Trump says. I don't believe it's the majority. I just hope people can at least consider that because it shows you that we're gaining ground, not losing it to the partisans or realizing that, we're some fringe awareness movement. And it's not, I just don't think that's the case. None of this would be happening the way it is if we weren't reaching people. I just think the truth is that like the last ditch effort, like the last thing they'll try is to make sure we never understand that we truly were reaching more people than not just TLAV, but anybody in this field doing what we're doing, that we changed everything, that what we're doing is reaching everybody. And it's just, they can't allow us to recognize that because then we shift in earnest. That's what I believe anyway, but please share the content, reach people. You've been blown away to see how open people are today to what you think they might try to avoid. Thank you for tuning in. I love you all. As always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.